This very special episode series has now been going on for just a little over a year. What started as just a look at a handful of emotional and unforgettable TV episodes has grown into something much bigger, covering everything from cartoons that surprised us with their depth to sitcoms that weren't afraid to tackle heavy issues, and even movies that left lasting impressions. In this compilation, I've pulled together parts 13 through 24, along with very special movies, part 2 and part 3, giving you one massive binge of nostalgia, lessons, and storytelling that still hits home today. Whether you're revisiting old favorites or discovering some hidden gems for the first time, this is the perfect way to celebrate how far the series has come. And of course, don't forget to hit that new hype button to help the channel keep growing.
The Berenstain Bears. The Berenstain Bears.
The Berenstain Bears in the House of Mirrors. This episode of The Berenstain Bears explores self-image and self-acceptance through Sister Bear's insecurities about her appearance. While playing with her friend Lizzie, Sister overhears a conversation and mistakenly believes that Lizzie called her ears big. This misunderstanding plants a seed of self-doubt, leading Sister to obsess over hiding her ears. No amount of reassurance from Mama Bear seems to help, as Sister fixates on what she perceives as a flaw. Her self-consciousness only grows as the annual carnival approaches, where she fears being seen by others. To help Sister see things differently, Mama takes her to the House of Mirrors at the carnival. Inside, the distorted reflections stretch, shrink, and twist their images in ridiculous ways. When Sister sees a mirror that truly makes her ears look enormous, she realizes just how exaggerated her fears were. More importantly, she learns that bears come in all shapes and sizes, and that what truly matters is not how we look, but who we are inside. This episode delivers a thoughtful and relatable lesson about self-acceptance and the importance of inner confidence, making it a timeless message for young audiences. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Help Wanted Mommy. When the Chipettes prepare for Parents' Night at school, their teacher insists that at least one parent must attend. Fearing they'll be separated, Brittany disguises herself as an adult, but her cover is blown, forcing the girls to admit they live alone. Miss Mooney informs them that she must report their situation, prompting them to beg Dave to take them in. While Dave agrees, tensions rise between the Chipmunks and the Chipettes as they struggle to live together. Fearing separation, they pretend everything is fine when a social worker visits. Realizing the arrangement won't work, Alvin convinces their neighbor Miss Miller to foster the Chipettes. Though hesitant at first, the girls slowly warm up to her, especially after she helps them prepare for their school talent show. The social worker ultimately approves Miss Miller as their guardian, securing their future. The episode ends with both groups competing in the talent show, proving that family isn't just about blood, it's about love and support. Batman, the animated series, Heart of Ice. Widely regarded as one of the greatest episodes in Batman, Heart of Ice redefined the character of Mr. Freeze, turning him from a gimmicky villain into a tragic figure. The episode introduces Victor Freeze as a scientist whose wife Nora is terminally ill. In his desperate attempts to save her, he turns to cryogenic research, only for his work to be sabotaged by a corrupt businessman. Left physically and emotionally frozen, Freeze becomes Mr. Freeze, seeking vengeance while mourning his lost humanity. What makes this episode so powerful is its ability to make the audience sympathize with a villain. Mr. Freeze isn't evil for the sake of being evil. He's a broken man consumed by grief and revenge. The stunning animation, haunting voice performance by Michael Ansara, and tragic storytelling set a new standard for Batman, the animated series, and cemented Heart of Ice as one of the most iconic episodes in the show's history.
We are defenders of the night. We are gargoyles.
Gargoyles, a lighthouse in the sea of time. This Gargoyles episode delivers a powerful message about the importance of literacy and knowledge. When Hudson, the eldest gargoyle, meets a blind man who loves reading, he initially dismisses books as unnecessary, believing that wisdom comes only from experience. Meanwhile, Macbeth, one of the show's recurring antagonists, steals the legendary Scrolls of Merlin, believing they contain ultimate power. However, the real lesson is revealed when the characters discover that knowledge itself, rather than magic or brute strength, is the true power that shapes the world. This episode stands out because it encourages critical thinking and the pursuit of education. Rather than relying on typical action-driven storytelling, A Lighthouse in the Sea of Time focuses on the importance of preserving history and passing knowledge from one generation to the next. It's a rare moment in animation where the value of literacy is framed as a form of strength, making it a standout entry in Gargoyles. Craig of the Creek Scout Guest. When Jason spends the night at Craig's house, Craig is annoyed at first, but it soon becomes clear that Jason isn't just visiting, he's escaping. Craig's mother, Nicole, notices Jason's need for stability and welcomes him warmly. Through small details, we see that Jason's home life is emotionally distant. His divorced father only acknowledges him to brag about his achievements. His stepmother shows more affection to her dogs, and family dinners don't exist. Used to being ignored, Jason silently accepts chores just to avoid conflict, revealing how much he craves a structured, caring home. Later, Jason confesses to Craig that he has had to fend for himself for most of his life, relying on his scout training to be self-sufficient. Seeing how Craig's family genuinely cares for each other makes him envious, but also highlights what he's missing. Scout Guest is a touching episode that sheds light on childhood neglect, showing how small acts of kindness, like welcoming someone into your home, can mean the world to a child who feels unseen. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Same as It Never Was. This Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode gives us a glimpse into an alternate future where everything has gone horribly wrong. When Donatello is transported into a dystopian timeline, he finds that his absence has led to the Shredder taking over the world, and his brothers have been forever changed by war and loss. Leonardo has become a hardened warrior. Michelangelo has lost his arm, and Raphael leads a desperate resistance. The bleak setting and emotional weight of the story make this one of the darkest TMNT episodes ever. What makes Same as It Never Was so compelling is its exploration of loss, responsibility, and the impact of a single individual. Donatello, usually the most analytical and reserved turtle, is forced to witness a world where his absence doomed everyone he loved. The emotional stakes are higher than ever, and the episode's tragic yet powerful conclusion cements it as one of the most unforgettable TMNT stories. Pokemon Goodbye Pikachu. One of the most heartbreaking moments in Pokemon history, Goodbye Pikachu follows Ash as he considers leaving Pikachu behind so that he can live happily in the wild with other Pikachu. The decision weighs heavily on Ash, as he struggles between doing what he thinks is best for his best friend and not wanting to say goodbye. In the end, Pikachu refuses to leave Ash's side, solidifying their bond as one of the strongest friendships in animation. This episode is a tearjerker for anyone who grew up with Pokemon. It's a testament to loyalty, friendship, and the idea that sometimes love means letting go, even if it's painful. The emotional weight of Ash's decision and the eventual reunion between him and Pikachu make this one of the most memorable moments in the series. Tom and Jerry Blue Cat Blues. Unlike the usual slapstick humor of Tom and Jerry, Blue Cat Blues is a shockingly dark and somber episode. The story follows Tom as he falls into despair after losing his love interest to a richer, flashier cat. Unable to cope with the heartbreak, he spirals into depression, leading to one of the most infamous endings in animation history. Tom and Jerry, sitting on train tracks, seemingly waiting for their fate. This episode stands out as one of the darkest entries in classic cartoons. While Tom and Jerry usually thrived on comedic violence, Blue Cat Blues instead delivers a surprisingly deep and tragic commentary on unrequited love and despair. Its bleak ending leaves a lasting impression, making it one of the most unique and haunting episodes in the series. Duckman, Once and Future Duck. This wildly inventive episode of Duckman starts with a seemingly simple premise. Duckman promises to attend the recital of his tuba-playing sons, Mambo and Charles. However, things take a bizarre turn when Ajax accidentally tears a hole in the space-time continuum, allowing Duckman to receive a visit from his future self. What begins as a cautionary warning quickly escalates into complete chaos as multiple versions of Duckman from various timelines appear, each more outlandish than the last. As events spiral out of control, Duckman is forced to reckon with the consequences of his actions, or lack thereof, making for one of the show's most unique and mind-bending episodes. Unlike the typical Duckman formula, which leans heavily on wisecracks and absurd humor, this episode builds upon a surprisingly intricate internal logic. It plays with the concept of fate, personal responsibility, and the butterfly effect, making it as intellectually engaging as it is hilariously off the wall. The constant interplay between the different future Duckmans leads to a series of increasingly chaotic and surreal moments, culminating in an unforgettable display of mayhem. Once and Future Duck stands as one of the most well-written and creatively directed episodes in the series, proving that Duckman could be both philosophically profound and utterly ridiculous at the same time. South Park, Kenny Dies. While South Park is known for its crude humor, Kenny Dies takes a surprisingly serious turn when Kenny is diagnosed with a terminal illness. Unlike his usual cartoonish deaths, this time there's no reset. His friends must confront real grief. Stan, unable to cope, avoids Kenny entirely while Kyle struggles with helplessness. Meanwhile, Cartman lobbies Congress for stem cell research, initially seeming to care, but ultimately revealing selfish motives. Despite Cartman's antics, the episode delivers one of South Park's most emotional moments. Kenny dies alone, with no last-minute joke to soften the impact. His absence lingers, making Kenny Dies one of the most memorable and poignant episodes in the series. While Kenny would eventually return, this episode proved that even South Park could deliver heartfelt storytelling.
Maybe the world is blind, or just a little unkind.
Punky Brewster, Urban Fear. This episode of Punky Brewster takes a dark turn when news breaks that a serial killer, the North Side Stalker, is terrorizing the city. While Henry and Betty try to shield Punky and Cherry from the disturbing news, the girls already know what's going on, and Punky becomes consumed with fear, especially for Henry's safety. Her anxiety spirals as she starts drawing violent images in class and tries to keep Henry from going to work at night, terrified that he'll be the next victim. Henry eventually sits Punky down and offers words of comfort and realism. He validates her fear but stresses the importance of not letting it take over her life. He assures her that being cautious is smart, but living in constant fear isn't healthy. It's a rare and honest conversation in a family show, confronting the difficult truth that sometimes the world can be scary. But love, awareness, and support are what help us move forward. Dinosaurs, Changing Nature. In one of the boldest and most haunting finales in sitcom history, Dinosaurs ends not with a happy lesson, but with the extinction of its characters. The story begins with the mysterious disappearance of the bunch beetles, which throws off Pangea's ecosystem. Charlene discovers that the beetle's swamp was destroyed by a We Say So factory, and the species is now extinct. This sets off a domino effect of bad decisions, as Earl and the company attempt to fix the environment by poisoning plants and triggering volcanic eruptions to bring rain. Instead, their actions trigger a volcanic winter, covering the world in snow and blocking out the sun. The final scenes are chilling, as Earl sits with his family, apologizing for trusting in progress over nature. The message is clear and devastating. Our actions have consequences, and ignoring environmental warnings can lead to irreversible destruction. For a show starring puppet dinosaurs, it's one of the most powerful environmental parables ever aired.
Thank you for being afraid. Thank you for being afraid.
The Golden Palace. Camptown races aren't nearly as much fun as they used to be. When Blanche proudly displays a Confederate flag in preparation for a Southern Heritage group's arrival at the hotel, it causes immediate tension with Roland. To Blanche, the flag symbolizes family and tradition, but Roland sees it as a painful reminder of racism and hate. Their argument forces both of them, and the audience, to confront the complexities of history and how symbols can mean very different things depending on perspective. As the conversation deepens, Blanche begins to re-examine her past and acknowledge the painful realities it's tied to. Her realization that cherished memories are connected to a legacy of oppression is an emotional turning point. The episode doesn't wrap things up neatly, but it sparks an honest and necessary dialogue. For a sitcom in the early 90s, The Golden Palace tackled racism with a surprisingly nuanced and timely approach. The Cosby Show, Theo in the Joint. This episode begins with a shock. Claire finds a marijuana joint in Theo's schoolbook and immediately suspects the worst. Although Theo denies ownership, Cliff and Claire confront him with disappointment and concern. What follows is a story about trust, responsibility, and the fear of being judged unfairly. Theo, determined to clear his name, launches his own investigation to discover who planted the joint in his belongings. Eventually, Theo finds the real culprit, a fellow student, and demands that he confess to Cliff. The episode reinforces the importance of honesty and self-advocacy, showing how easily misunderstandings can damage trust, even within loving families. By standing up for himself and insisting on the truth, Theo restores his parents' faith in him and gives viewers a positive model for handling false accusations. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The Body. The Body is one of the most raw and realistic portrayals of grief ever seen on television. The episode follows Buffy discovering her mother Joyce dead on the couch from a brain aneurysm. There are no background scores or cutaways to fantasy. It's quiet, brutal, and real. Buffy goes through the motions of calling 911, trying CPR, and eventually accepting that her mother is gone. Each character responds to the news in their own way. Willow spirals over what to wear, Xander gets angry and puts his fist through a wall, and Anya delivers a heartbreaking monologue about not understanding death. What sets this episode apart is its refusal to offer comfort. There are no monsters to slay, no magical resurrection, just pain, confusion, and the question of how to move forward. When Dawn asks, "Where did she go?" the camera cuts before she touches her mother's body. It's haunting, powerful, and considered one of the most important episodes in television history for how it tackled death and grief head-on.
When this boy meets world.
Boy Meets World, My Baby Valentine and Resurrection. What starts as a light Valentine's Day episode quickly turns serious when Amy Matthews unexpectedly goes into labor and gives birth prematurely. Corey is so focused on his ruined romantic plans with Topanga that he doesn't realize the severity of the situation until the baby is rushed to the NICU. As his parents deal with the fear of losing their newborn, Corey begins to see that life is bigger than his own relationship troubles. In the follow-up episode, Resurrection, Corey and Topanga's relationship faces strain as the baby's fate hangs in the balance. While Amy and Alan hold tight to hope, Corey struggles to accept the possibility of loss, and Topanga reminds him that not everything can be fixed with a smile or a comforting word. The emotional turning point comes when Sean delivers a moving speech to baby Joshua, helping Corey and Topanga reconnect. It's a powerful story about love, family, and finding strength in moments of fear.
Can see why these guys, the new guys, started streetwise. Citywide, roll with the city guys.
City Guys, Raise the Roofies. In a surprisingly heavy episode of the teen sitcom City Guys, Cassidy begins dating an older college student named Trent, who turns out to be dangerously predatory. Trent plans to drug Cassidy at a frat party, but his plan is accidentally thwarted when her friend Dawn drinks the spike punch instead. While Dawn is taken to the health center, Trent tries again to drug Cassidy in private, only for Chris to intervene just in time after overhearing frat boys talking. The episode doesn't shy away from the seriousness of the issue. It handles topics like consent, assault, and peer pressure with unusual weight for a teen series. The cast plays the situation with sincerity, and the writers deliver a strong message about recognizing red flags and supporting victims. In a time when these subjects were rarely covered on shows aimed at teens, this episode stood out for its bravery and urgency.
I got in one little fight and my mom got scared and said, "You're moving with your auntie and uncle in Bel Air."
The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Bullets Over Bel-Air. A camping trip turns into a nightmare when Will and Carlton are held at gunpoint during an ATM visit. When the gunman panics, Will pushes Carlton out of harm's way and is shot. The scene is tense and terrifying, and the aftermath shows a family grappling with the trauma. While Will survives, the experience shakes everyone, especially Carlton, who begins to question everything he thought he knew about justice and safety. The emotional core of the episode comes when Carlton, overwhelmed by fear and anger, reveals to Will that he bought a gun. Will pleads with him to hand it over, reminding him that violence isn't the answer. The moment Carlton leaves the gun on Will's bed and Will sees it's loaded is one of the most haunting in the series. The Fresh Prince often balanced comedy and real-life issues, but this episode showed just how raw and powerful it could be.
What would we do, baby, without us?
Family Ties. Give Uncle Arthur a Kiss. This episode of Family Ties deals with a rarely discussed subject in 80s sitcoms: sexual harassment from a trusted adult. Arthur, a longtime family friend and Steven's colleague, crosses the line by making unwanted advances toward Mallory. At first, his behavior is subtle, but it quickly escalates to a non-consensual kiss that leaves Mallory shaken. What makes this episode so powerful is its handling of accountability. Mallory confides in her family, and they immediately take her side, confronting Arthur directly. There's no sweeping the situation under the rug, and Arthur is forced to face the consequences. He promises to seek professional help, but the damage is done. It's a rare and courageous episode that addresses betrayal, boundaries, and the importance of speaking up. The Carmichael Show, Gender. In this standout episode, Jared mentors a promising young basketball player, Jordan, who initially comes out as gay, but later reveals he is actually transgender. Jared is blindsided and struggles to process the revelation. The show doesn't shy away from showing his confusion, nor that of his family, who try to understand what being transgender means while clumsily asking questions. What makes this episode remarkable is its refusal to offer tidy resolution. Jared admits that he doesn't fully understand, but he promises to support Jordan anyway. It's an honest depiction of someone working through their own biases while choosing love and acceptance over fear. The episode is full of laughs, but never at Jordan's expense. It treats him with empathy and humanity, setting a high bar for how sitcoms can handle trans representation. The Care Bears, the Sleeping Giant. In this heartfelt episode, Baby Hugs and Tugs meet a towering sleeping giant who's trying to return to his 100-year nap. Instead of being afraid, the cubs invite him to play, and to his surprise, he enjoys it. While Tenderheart Bear searches for a special slumber flower to help the giant sleep again, the cubs and their new friend bond over games like hopscotch and hide and seek, forming a genuine friendship. When Tenderheart returns with news of a whole valley of slumber flowers, the giant hesitates. He now wants to stay awake and join the Care Bear family. But when a tornado threatens the cubs, he bravely runs through the flower-filled valley to save them, knowing it may put him to sleep. After the storm, the giant slumbers once more and the cubs are devastated. Tenderheart gently reminds them that as long as they carry him in their hearts, their friend is never truly gone. The episode serves as a gentle allegory for death and grief, giving young children a way to understand the loss of a loved one, and how memories and love can keep someone with us, even after they're gone. Arthur, the Great McGrady. This emotional episode of Arthur takes a sensitive and honest look at how children process a loved one battling cancer. When Mrs. McGrady, the beloved school cafeteria cook, unexpectedly goes on leave, The students are left baffled and disgusted by the poor substitute meals served by her nephew Skip. But what truly shakes them is Mr. Ratburn's announcement that Mrs. McGrady is out because she has cancer. The kids each respond differently. Arthur and D.W. try to support her with gifts and comfort, while Muffy remains in denial, and Francine, having lost her grandfather to the disease, is overwhelmed with sadness and fear. Francine eventually finds encouragement from a surprising source, wrestler Uncle Slam, a cancer survivor, who inspires her to channel her emotions into something positive. A charity bike race called Pedal for a Cure. The episode does a wonderful job showing how grief, confusion, and helplessness can be transformed into empathy and action. From Muffy learning that helping isn't always about gift-giving, to Francine's emotional reconciliation with Mrs. McGrady, it's a heartfelt story about compassion, resilience, and supporting those we care about, especially when they need it most. Flintstone Kids, Just Say No Special. This special episode of the Flintstone Kids goes full force into 1980s anti-drug messaging, with a storyline that sees Wilma tempted to hang with an older crowd led by a preteen stoner named Stony. As she drifts away from her usual crew, Freddie, Barney, and Betty, Wilma is pressured to try marijuana but ultimately decides to confide in her parents, who assure her that a real friend would never offer her drugs. Backed by her true friends and a LaToya Jackstone, yes, the prehistoric version of LaToya Jackson's song titled Just Say No, the kids form their own anti-drug club and vow to stick to their values. The second half of the special sees Freddie launching a pet washing business to raise money for tickets to the big Michael Jackstone concert, only for Stony to sabotage the effort. When the kids uncover the truth, they decide to beat Stony fair and square in the local Riddle rally. And they do. Stony is ultimately rejected by his own crew and arrested for drug use, while the rest join the Just Say No club. The special ends with a parody of Michael Jackson's Beat It, reworked with anti-drug lyrics, followed by a PSA from then First Lady Nancy Reagan. It's pure 80s moral messaging with a prehistoric twist, and an unmissable piece of cartoon-era history. SWAT Kats, Razor's Edge. In one of SWAT Kats' most emotionally driven episodes, Razor's self-confidence is shattered after he believes he seriously injured two elderly civilians during a high-speed chase with Dark Cat. Racked with guilt and doubt, Razor begins to question whether he's still fit to be a hero. This sends him into a downward spiral, contemplating stepping away from the SWAT Kats entirely, leaving T-Bone to take on Dark Cat's newest evil scheme alone. It's a rare moment of introspection in a show typically known more for high-octane action than emotional weight. What makes this episode stand out is its commitment to character development, something not often seen in the series. Razor's internal struggle reflects the psychological toll that constant danger and destruction can have on a hero. There's still room for humor, including a cleverly choreographed hospital fight scene that balances the episode's darker tone. The only flaw is the overused trope of Dark Cat's bumbling henchmen, which slightly undercuts the drama. Still, Razor's Edge offers a surprising depth and seriousness, proving SWAT Kats was capable of much more than just aerial fights and exploding buildings. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2012, Owari. Following the devastating events of Requiem, where Splinter was killed by Super Shredder, Owari opens with the Turtles, April, Casey, and their allies gathered at the farmhouse to mourn their fallen father and sensei. It's a moment of stillness and grief, a rarity in a series so packed with action. Leonardo, feeling the weight of responsibility, receives a vision from Splinter's spirit urging him to become the new sensei and end Super Shredder's reign once and for all. It's an emotional torch-passing moment that speaks to legacy, leadership, and closure. The imagery of Leo watching petals float into the sunlight is subtle but powerful, a visual metaphor for moving forward through loss. The second half of the episode returns us to action, but not without stakes. From infiltrating Super Shredder's hideout and facing his elite footbots, to emotional battles against Tiger Claw and the mutated villains Bebop, Rocksteady, and Fishface, the Turtles press forward with purpose. Ultimately, Leonardo faces Super Shredder alone in a brutal rooftop duel. Nearly defeated, Leo is reminded by Splinter's spirit of his mission. With one final strike, he defeats the monster who took their father. The closing moment as Leo tosses Shredder's Kabuto to the ground is cathartic and emotional. The Turtles have avenged Splinter, but they know the war isn't over. They'll keep fighting, with Splinter's memory living on in their hearts. It's a stunning, powerful finale to the Shredder arc, and one of the most emotional TMNT episodes ever made.
Superhero Static Shock. Superhero Static Shock.
Static Shock, where the rubber meets the road. This episode of Static Shock takes a superhero twist on a real-world issue, dyslexia. When Rubber Band Man, aka Adam, goes on a date with Virgil's sister Sharon, he struggles to read the menu, subtly revealing his learning disability. The issue intensifies during a battle against the villain Tarmac, who steals a powerful fusion engine from Edwin Alva's lab. As Adam tries to follow Alva's instructions to stop Tarmac, he freezes. He can't read the override commands. His hesitation allows Tarmac to escape, and Alva unfairly blames him for the failure. Later, Rubber Band Man opens up to Static, admitting that he has dyslexia. With Static's encouragement, he begins to understand that it's nothing to be ashamed of, and that with support and the right tools, it can be managed. When a showdown with Tarmac leads to a damaged fusion engine and a collapsing building, Adam is the one who retrieves the engine and, with some improvisation, successfully deactivates it, proving that a learning difference doesn't mean he can't be a hero. The episode ends with a PSA-style message from Static and Rubber Band Man about dyslexia, breaking the stigma and reminding viewers that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. DuckTales 2017, The Last Crash of the Sun Chaser. What begins as a thrilling family adventure quickly turns into one of DuckTales' most emotional and character-defining episodes. While the family heads to Monocro for a vacation, the kids secretly piece together clues about Della Duck and the mysterious Spear of Selene. But everything changes when the plane crashes atop a cliffside peak, and Dewey risks his safety to retrieve a single piece of a long-lost document. As tension builds and the plane teeters on the edge, the emotional weight of the mystery finally comes crashing down, both literally and figuratively. Cornered, Scrooge is forced to reveal the painful truth. Della took the rocket he built as a surprise, flew into a cosmic storm, and became stranded in space. Although he tried everything to save her, it wasn't enough. The boys, devastated, blame him for encouraging her recklessness, and the emotional fallout fractures the family. In the end, everyone survives the plane's fall. But back at the manor, the consequences linger. The triplets leave in silence. Beakley and Webby distance themselves, and Scrooge, for the first time, is truly alone. It's an episode that shows how guilt, grief, and unspoken truth can break even the strongest families, and why healing starts with honesty.
Move it, football head! Hey, Arnold!
Hey Arnold, hey Harold. This Hey Arnold episode offers a surprisingly sweet and meaningful story about insecurity, bullying, and connection. When Rhonda throws a boy-girl party, Harold initially mocks the idea, insisting he hates dancing and girls. But after a heart-to-heart on the balcony with the often overlooked Patty, the two form an unexpected bond. They both open up about being labeled dumb and isolated, Patty for being tough, and Harold for being held back in school. Their awkward dance leads to a shared moment of vulnerability, respect, and even the beginnings of a crush. As Harold and Patty grow closer, Harold faces ridicule from his friends Stinky and Sid, who tease him for liking Big Patty. In a moment of courage, Harold stands up for Patty in the cafeteria, shouting down the entire lunchroom and proudly defending her intelligence and kindness. The episode closes on a heartwarming note as Harold joins Patty at her lunch table, no longer ashamed of his friendship, and possibly more with her. It's a beautiful story about self-acceptance, confronting peer pressure, and realizing that true connection comes from seeing someone for who they really are.
SpongeBob SquarePants!
SpongeBob SquarePants. Have you seen this snail? This episode shows the typically lighthearted SpongeBob at its most emotional. After neglecting his pet snail Gary, SpongeBob is devastated when Gary runs away. What follows is a sincere, surprisingly sad depiction of guilt and the fear of losing someone you love. SpongeBob's heartbreak is captured in the now iconic ballad Gary Come Home, which struck a chord with viewers of all ages. What makes this episode stand out is its honesty. Beneath the comedy and absurdity is a real message about appreciating those who depend on you, and the pain of taking someone for granted. It's one of the few times the show slows down to let its main character truly feel something, and the result is one of the most memorable and emotional episodes in SpongeBob history. Ren and Stimpy Adult Party Cartoon, Ren Seeks Help. This episode dives headfirst into psychological horror, as Ren spirals into a full-blown mental crisis. After terrifying Stimpy with his unstable behavior, Ren promises to get help and seeks therapy from Mr. Horse. During the session, Ren recounts disturbing childhood memories of animal abuse, especially a prolonged torment of a frog that begged for death. His parents eventually force him to finish the job, but Ren fakes it and throws the frog away alive. As the session ends, Mr. Horse becomes enraged by Ren's confessions, calling him insane and saying he belongs in prison. The confrontation escalates into a brutal fight, ending with Ren killing Mr. Horse in a fit of rage. Ambulance workers arrive to take Ren away to an asylum. Disturbing and graphic, this episode is less comedy and more a raw look into madness, guilt, and the consequences of untreated mental illness. Sesame Street, Meet Julia. When Sesame Street introduced Julia, it wasn't just adding a new Muppet. It was taking a major step toward inclusion and understanding. Julia has autism, and the show carefully depicted her behaviors, like flapping her hands and not responding immediately to greetings, not as problems, but simply as differences. Big Bird's confusion and eventual acceptance of Julia becomes a perfect stand-in for young viewers learning how to approach friendship with those who are different. The episode beautifully highlights that you don't have to completely understand someone to be kind to them. Instead of focusing on what makes Julia different, the show emphasizes shared activities like games and stuffed animals to build friendship. It's a gentle, empathetic approach that taught millions of kids and adults how to open their hearts a little wider.
There's no way I can make it without you, do it without you, be here without you. It's no fun when you're doing it so.
Austin and Ally, Beauties and Bullies. At first, Beauties and Bullies looks like a typical lighthearted episode about school plays. But after Trish lands the lead role, she becomes the target of vicious online bullying. What hits hardest is how Trish tries to laugh it off at first, only to crumble in private, overwhelmed by the cruelty of anonymous classmates. The broken mirror and the hurtful messages on her locker show how words, even typed ones, can cause lasting pain. The episode doesn't settle for easy solutions either. Trish's decision to almost drop out of school shows how deep the wounds can go. Even when her friends uncover the bully, Trish makes it clear that revenge won't heal her hurt. Instead, the show highlights that real strength comes from facing the pain head-on and seeking support. By the end, Austin and Ally delivers a powerful lesson about empathy, resilience, and the power of community when confronting bullying. Zoom, American Kids Remember. Zoom's American Kids Remember was a rare moment in children's programming. A year after the 9/11 attacks, this PBS special brought together kids from different backgrounds to talk honestly about their fear, confusion, and sadness. These weren't scripted lines. These were real conversations about what it meant to live in a changed America. The show masterfully balanced heavy feelings with hope. Kids spoke about increased prejudice they noticed toward Muslim classmates, about being afraid to fly, and about losing parents who were first responders. But they also shared poetry, art, and dreams for a better future. By giving kids a space to process real-world trauma, Zoom created something uniquely raw and valuable. Proof that young voices deserve to be heard in national conversations. Moesha, hello, what's this? Moesha tackled substance abuse in a way that hit close to home. When a marijuana joint is found at the Mitchell's house, the immediate assumption is that Mo is to blame. What follows is an intense look at broken trust within families, and the gut-wrenching realization that it's actually her younger brother Miles who's experimenting. Rather than demonizing Miles, the episode carefully explores how curiosity and peer pressure can lead young people down dangerous paths. The family's decision to address the issue with love, education, and firm guidance offers a roadmap for how parents can respond without alienating their kids. Ending with a PSA about drug awareness, Moesha made it clear that the conversation about substance use had to start early and come from a place of care.
Then there's Maud. And then there's Maud. And then there's Maud.
Maud's Dilemma. Parts 1 and 2. Few episodes in TV history are as bold or groundbreaking as Maud's Dilemma. When Maud discovers she's unexpectedly pregnant in her late 40s, she grapples with a decision no one expects to see discussed so openly on primetime TV: whether to have an abortion. The show navigates the conversation with seriousness, humor, and a remarkable amount of honesty for its time. Maud's internal conflict, supporting abortion rights politically but struggling when faced with the choice personally, is portrayed with rare nuance. The episode doesn't offer easy answers, instead showing the emotional and moral complexity of the decision. It's no exaggeration to say that Maud's Dilemma changed what was possible on television forever. South Central, Gun Parts 1 and 2. South Central delivered one of the rawest, most unflinching portrayals of gun culture in American neighborhoods. When Andre starts carrying a gun for protection, the result isn't empowerment. It's alienation, fear, and ultimately heartbreak. His desperate need to feel safe only isolates him further, damaging his relationship with Nicole and putting others at risk. The show didn't sugarcoat anything. Carrying a gun escalates conflict instead of solving it. Watching Andre's slow unraveling is painful but necessary, and by ending on a tragedy rather than a neat resolution, South Central made a brutally honest statement about the cycle of violence that plagues too many communities.
We will still remain.
All of us, the N-word. In one of the most uncomfortable but important moments in the show, young Bobby innocently repeats the N-word at his birthday party. What follows is an intense and complicated discussion among the adults about race, history, and language reclamation. It's a moment that could have been sensationalized, but instead is handled with sensitivity and realism. Rather than preaching, All of Us models how families can and should talk about these complicated issues early and honestly. It acknowledges that kids pick up language without understanding it, and it's up to parents to teach the context and history behind their words.
And Jerry Mathers as the Beaver.
Leave It to Beaver, Beaver and Andy. It's easy to remember Leave It to Beaver as a sweet, simple show, but Beaver and Andy proves it wasn't afraid of serious issues. When Beaver innocently offers a recovering alcoholic a bottle of brandy, it sets off a chain reaction that forces the adults to realize their mistake. Shielding Beaver from understanding addiction left him vulnerable to enabling it. The moment when Beaver's dad apologizes for not being honest about Andy's struggles hits harder than expected. It's a rare example of early television acknowledging that kids deserve truth, even about difficult topics like alcoholism. In doing so, Leave It to Beaver paved the way for future shows to be more transparent and responsible when dealing with adult issues. House of Pain, absolutely positive. This episode cleverly intertwines humor and heavy realities. Curtis's over-the-top fear after a colonoscopy and the discovery of a polyp adds some levity, but the heart of the episode lies in Calvin's relationship with Karen, a woman living with HIV. Their story brings sensitivity to a topic that's often mishandled, showing that love, trust, and open communication are essential when chronic illness is involved. House of Pain deserves credit for taking HIV out of the after-school special realm and placing it in the context of normal adult relationships. It destigmatizes the diagnosis while still respecting the very real challenges it presents. By balancing Curtis's comedic overreactions with Calvin's more grounded storyline, the show delivers a full picture of fear, ignorance, love, and acceptance. Little House on the Prairie, Sylvia Parts 1 and 2. In perhaps the darkest arc of the series, Little House tells the harrowing story of Sylvia, a young girl assaulted by a masked man and left pregnant. The town's rush to judge her, and the cruelty she faces from both adults and peers, is heartbreaking. Albert's loyalty to her in the face of vicious rumors is inspiring, but tragically not enough to save her. The final scenes are brutal. Sylvia flees her abusive father, only to encounter her rapist again, leading to a confrontation that ends in violence. For a show built on wholesome values, Sylvia pushed storytelling boundaries in a way few family dramas have ever dared. It's a painful but unforgettable reminder of how badly victims can be treated and how much damage judgment can cause. The World of David the Gnome, The Mountains of Beyond. In the final episode of The World of David the Gnome, titled The Mountains of Beyond, the series concludes with a poignant exploration of mortality. David and his wife Lisa, having reached the age of 400, embark on a journey to the mountains of beyond, where gnomes go to pass peacefully into nature. The episode presents death not as something to fear, but as a natural and beautiful part of life's cycle. Their transformation into trees symbolizes a return to the earth, emphasizing themes of harmony and renewal. This gentle portrayal of death offers a comforting perspective for viewers of all ages. By addressing such a profound topic with grace and serenity, the episode provides a meaningful conclusion to the series. It encourages acceptance and understanding of life's inevitable end, leaving a lasting impression on its audience. Beyond just serving as a tear-jerking finale, The Mountains of Beyond dares to handle the concept of death in a way that most adult shows shy away from, let alone children's programming. There's no villain, no tragedy, just a quiet and poetic acceptance of nature's course.
SpongeBob SquarePants! SpongeBob SquarePants!
SpongeBob SquarePants, Dying for Pie. In this episode from SpongeBob SquarePants, Squidward inadvertently gives SpongeBob a pie that he believes is explosive. Convinced that SpongeBob has only a day to live, Squidward endeavors to make his remaining time special. The episode balances its characteristic humor with a surprisingly heartfelt narrative about guilt, friendship, and the value of time spent together. What really makes this episode stand out is how it reveals SpongeBob's unshakable optimism in the face of supposed doom. While Squidward is racked with guilt, SpongeBob simply sees a chance to spend time with a friend. The moments they share, like watching the sunset or laughing together, highlight the beauty in simple companionship. Even though it ends with a comedic twist, the emotional core lingers, making this one of the show's most unexpectedly heartfelt episodes. Smurfs, Once in a Blue Moon. Once in a Blue Moon is a standout episode from the Smurfs series. In this story, a baby Smurf is delivered to the village by a stork, bringing joy to all. However, the stork later returns, claiming the delivery was a mistake and intends to take the baby back. Grouchy Smurf, who has grown attached to the baby, runs away with him, highlighting themes of attachment, loss, and the bonds of chosen family. The episode concludes with the stork deciding to let the baby stay, reinforcing the idea that love and care define family more than biology. This narrative emphasizes the emotional depth of the characters and the importance of compassion and understanding within a community.
Start
Code Lyoko, Fight to the Finish. In the penultimate episode to the series finale of Code Lyoko, the team prepares for one final mission to stop the evil artificial intelligence, Ixana. Throughout the episode, Alita is haunted by a disturbing premonition that her father, Franz Hopper, may not survive the final battle. As the group navigates both emotional goodbyes and their most dangerous challenge yet, the weight of responsibility and sacrifice hangs over every moment. The decision to shut down the virtual world of Lyoko for good is symbolic, marking the end of both a literal war and a pivotal chapter in their youth. Tragically, Alita's fears are realized when her premonition comes true. Franz sacrifices himself to ensure the defeat of Xana once and for all. It's a devastating yet heroic moment that underlines the show's recurring themes of love, sacrifice, and the cost of fighting for what's right. As Lyoko disappears forever, so too does a part of their childhood, and Alita is left to grieve her father's second and final loss. The bittersweet ending offers closure, but not without heartache. It's a deeply emotional send-off that honors the growth of every character and the bond they form through every upload, scan, and battle in the digital world.
Heart faithful and strong, sharing kindness. It's an easy feat, and magic makes it all complete. You have mine.
My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Tanks for the Memories. In this episode, Rainbow Dash faces the impending hibernation of her pet tortoise, Tank. Unwilling to accept this temporary separation, she goes through the stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. The episode serves as an allegory for coping with loss and change, teaching viewers, especially children, about the importance of processing emotions healthily and the inevitability of life's transitions. The narrative emphasizes the value of support from friends during difficult times. By portraying Rainbow Dash's emotional journey, the episode normalizes expressions of vulnerability and highlights the strength found in accepting and adapting to change.
Move it, football head!
Hey, Arnold!
Hey Arnold, Chocolate Boy. Chocolate Boy offers a deeper look into a character often used for comic relief in Hey Arnold. The episode reveals that Chocolate Boy's obsession with sweets stems from emotional trauma related to his nanny's departure. With Arnold's help, he attempts to overcome his addiction, highlighting themes of coping mechanisms, the impact of childhood experiences, and the journey toward healing. The animation even reflects the tone shift, with moody lighting and tighter, more intimate scenes showing just how much Chocolate Boy's world has shrunk under the weight of his emotional crutches. While the episode ends on a hopeful note, with Chocolate Boy finally taking a step toward healing, it never sugarcoats how hard change can be. It stands as a powerful metaphor for addiction and the importance of kindness, patience, and mental health awareness, wrapped in a deceptively simple cartoon. X-Men: The Animated Series, A Rogue's Tale. This episode delves into Rogue's past, revealing the traumatic circumstances under which she absorbed Ms. Marvel's powers and memories. The narrative explores themes of identity, guilt, and the struggle for self-acceptance. As Rogue confronts her past and the consequences of her actions, viewers gain insight into her internal conflicts and the complexities of her character, making it one of the most emotionally charged episodes in the series. This episode provides a nuanced portrayal of trauma and its lasting effects. It emphasizes the importance of confronting one's past to achieve personal growth and the role of support systems in navigating emotional turmoil.
Aang can save the world.
Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Southern Air Temple. This marks a turning point in Avatar: The Last Airbender, as Aang discovered the genocide of his people by the Fire Nation. The revelation is devastating, leading Aang to enter the Avatar state in a moment of intense grief and anger. This episode tackles themes of loss, survivor's guilt, and the heavy burden of responsibility. It's a powerful exploration of how personal tragedy can shape one's destiny and the importance of confronting painful truths. The narrative highlights the significance of friendship and support in overcoming adversity. Aang's journey underscores the resilience of the human spirit and the capacity for healing through connection and understanding. King of the Hill. Death Picks Cotton. In this standout episode, Hank Hill faces the death of his estranged father, Cotton. The episode navigates the complexities of their strained relationship, highlighting themes of unresolved issues, the difficulty of forgiveness, and the nuances of grief. As Hank grapples with conflicting emotions, the narrative underscores that mourning isn't always straightforward, especially when the deceased had a complicated legacy. Death Picks Cotton doesn't provide a clean resolution, and that's what makes it so powerful. Hank doesn't have a grand epiphany. He doesn't suddenly reconcile years of resentment, but he does show up. He honors his father's memory in his own quiet way, not because Cotton deserved it, but because Hank needs to believe in something better. It taps into the emotional ambiguity many feel when someone difficult passes away. Grief without closure, mourning without absolution. It's brutally honest, and all the more moving because of it. BoJack Horseman. Free Churro. Free Churro is a unique episode of BoJack Horseman, consisting entirely of BoJack delivering a eulogy at his mother's funeral. Through his monologue, BoJack reflects on his tumultuous relationship with his parents, touching on themes of neglect, the longing for approval, and the search for meaning and loss. The episode is a raw and unfiltered look at the complexities of familial relationships and the lasting impact of childhood trauma. What makes Free Churro so unforgettable is its daring vulnerability. In just under 30 minutes, the show delivers a thesis on generational trauma, emotional neglect, and how we all process grief differently, or don't process it at all. The final punchline, that he's been delivering the eulogy in the wrong room, is darkly hilarious, but also tragic. Even in death, BoJack is misaligned with the world, still searching for meaning.
Today's special, come join in the fun.
Today's Special, Phil's Visit. In one of the most serious episodes of Today's Special, the show addresses alcoholism through the arrival of Phil Finelli, a renowned photographer and old friend of Sam's. The visit begins with excitement as Phil prepares a photo shoot and charms everyone, especially Muffy, who becomes his assistant. But things take a troubling turn when Muffy catches Phil drinking from a flask, and he becomes aggressive, scaring her and demanding secrecy. As Phil's behavior worsens, yelling at Muffy and eventually destroying a display, she finally tells Sam the truth. Sam and the others confront Phil, who's forced to acknowledge that he has a drinking problem. What makes the episode stand out is how honestly it handles a tough issue for young viewers. Jody assures Muffy she wasn't to blame, and Sam emphasizes that it's always okay to speak up when something doesn't feel right. Phil apologizes, vowing to seek help, though Jody gently explains that recovery is never guaranteed. The episode ends on a bittersweet note with Muffy writing Phil a letter, hopeful they can be friends again one day. It's a rare children's show moment that trusts its audience to understand real-world problems and the importance of courage, compassion, and telling someone when something feels wrong.
No, I know, I'm no Superman.
Scrubs, My Lunch. This unforgettable episode of Scrubs balances humor and heartbreak in the show's signature style. After a chance encounter, Dr. Cox allows 3 patients to receive organ transplants from a woman who had recently died. However, it's later discovered that the donor had rabies, and all 3 recipients die. Dr. Cox, known for his sarcasm and emotional distance, completely breaks down, blaming himself for the tragic outcome. What sets this episode apart is how it explores the weight of medical responsibility and emotional burnout in healthcare. Cox's meltdown, where he isolates himself and refuses to return to work, is one of the most devastating moments in the series. JD's quiet presence by his side shows the importance of support, even when there are no right words. My Lunch is often cited as Scrubs' most powerful episode, and for good reason.
Running together, putting it on the line.
Hang Time, Revolver Problem Solver. In Revolver Problem Solver, Hang Time, a high school basketball sitcom, dives into gun violence with an unusually heavy hand. After a student is bullied, he brings a gun to school, not to harm others but to protect himself. When the team discovers this, they're forced to confront how easily violence can enter their lives and how quickly things can escalate. The episode's power lies in how grounded it feels. The school doesn't turn into a crime scene, but it does become a space for deep reflection and dialogue. Characters who typically talk about game scores and dating are suddenly forced to discuss life, death, and fear. It's a sobering reminder that no community is immune from the weight of real-world danger, and that conversations about safety and support matter at every level. My Wife and Kids, Moms Away, Part 1 and 2. These two episodes mix the show's family sitcom formula with surprisingly serious material. While Jay is out caring for her injured mother, Michael struggles to hold down the fort. Between trying to keep the kids happy and dealing with teenage drama, things spiral fast. Claire's friend Charmaine discovers she might be pregnant and considers running away, while Junior starts associating with questionable friends. Michael's attempts to manage everything provide laughs, but also heartfelt lessons. His talks with Charmaine about parenting, responsibility, and honesty hit hard, especially knowing he became a father at a young age himself. The episode ends with Charmaine choosing to speak to her parents instead of running, showing the value of adult guidance and trust. These episodes skillfully juggle humor and heaviness in a way that many shows struggle to replicate. One-on-One, No More Wire Hangers. This dramatic episode of One-on-One stands out for its raw portrayal of alcoholism and domestic abuse. When Flex finds Arnez hiding out in Brianna's room to avoid his abusive alcoholic mother, he steps in and confronts her. What starts as a simple misunderstanding quickly escalates to a dark moment of physical abuse, forcing Flex to take action and help her seek treatment. The strength of this episode lies in its unflinching honesty. Arnez's pain isn't glossed over, and his mother's struggles aren't villainized. Instead, the show shows the toll addiction takes on both the abuser and those around them. In the end, she agrees to seek help, providing a hopeful but realistic resolution. It's a standout moment in a series known more for humor than heartbreak.
Friends will always stand by me when this boy meets world.
Boy Meets World. Everybody loves Stuart. In this episode, the beloved college professor Stuart behaves inappropriately toward Topanga. When Corey punches him for it, the situation quickly becomes complicated. Authority figures and students are divided. Some believe Corey's violence was unwarranted, while others recognize Stuart's subtle manipulation. The episode ultimately sheds light on the way institutions often fail to support victims, especially when the accused holds power. Everybody Loves Stuart challenges viewers to examine gray areas. What counts as crossing a line, how easy it is to overlook warning signs, and how difficult it is to stand up when others won't. It's a surprisingly mature episode for the show, especially given its college-era comedic tone. This installment remains a standout for how it handled consent, institutional failure, and the importance of believing victims.
And suddenly you're finding out the facts of life are all about you.
Facts of Life. Breaking Point. In this heavy-hitting episode of The Facts of Life, Blair is running for student council president, but loses to her opponent Cynthia, the daughter of a diplomat. Though Blair is named vice president, she struggles to accept defeat, and becomes jealous when Cynthia quickly bonds with the others, especially Tootie. When Cynthia gifts Tootie a necklace, the gesture deepens their new friendship. However, the mood shifts again when rumors swirl that Cynthia may be leaving school to reunite with her father overseas. Blair clings to the hope that Cynthia's departure will make her president after all, only to be disappointed when Cynthia confirms she's staying. But the real heartbreak comes days later when Cynthia is found unconscious from an overdose and tragically passes away. The girls are stunned. The news hits Tootie the hardest, and she debates whether to keep the necklace Cynthia gave her. Mrs. Garrett helps the girls process their grief, explaining that teen suicide often stems from feeling isolated and unable to cope. In a powerful closing moment, the girls agree to start a peer hotline to support their classmates. As they leave Cynthia's room, Tootie returns quietly, reclaiming the necklace, not out of guilt, but to remember the friend she lost too soon.
Different strokes to move the world, yes it does, it takes different strokes to move the world.
Different Strokes, The Hitchhikers, Part 1 and 2. This infamous two-part episode of Different Strokes opens with a warning. It deals with serious and disturbing content. When Arnold and Kimberly hitchhike home after shopping, they're picked up by a seemingly nice man named Bill. He turns out to be a predator, luring them into his apartment under false pretenses. What follows is one of the most unsettling stories the show ever told, as Bill attempts to assault Kimberly, tying up Arnold and locking him away in a separate room. The episode was intentionally uncomfortable and served as a wake-up call about the dangers of trusting strangers. Arnold's escape and eventual rescue of Kimberly is harrowing, and the final moments leave a lasting impression. It's a stark reminder that even wholesome shows have a responsibility to educate their audiences about real-life dangers, and Different Strokes took that responsibility seriously. Little House on the Prairie, I'll Be Waving As You Drive, Part 1 and 2. This two-part episode deals with Mary Ingalls losing her sight and being sent to a school for the blind. Her adjustment is heartbreaking, from lashing out in anger to feeling unworthy of love. With help from her teacher, she slowly regains her confidence and independence. Their connection eventually becomes romantic, showing that disability doesn't negate love or dignity. The beauty of this episode is in its realism. Mary's grief isn't rushed, her family's pain is evident, and the journey toward acceptance is slow and painful, but powerful. This story helped viewers understand that life with a disability can still be full, and that strength often comes through community and patience. Bel Air, Where To? A modern take on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's classic episode, Papa's Got a Brand New Excuse. This Bel Air episode digs even deeper into Will and Lou's fractured relationship. After years of abandonment, Will finally gets the full truth about why his father left. The confrontation is raw, emotional, and devastating. Jabari Banks brings a vulnerability that mirrors Will Smith's iconic breakdown, while giving it a 2020s realism. Unlike the original, where Will's father walks out again, Bel Air presents a more complex but grounded ending. It still hurts, but it's less about dramatic betrayal and more about generational trauma, accountability, and choosing how to move forward. It honors the past while carving out its own emotionally rich path, proving that some very special episodes deserve revisiting with a new lens. Sonic the Hedgehog Sat AM Ultrasonic. Ultrasonic is an early standout from the darker and more mature Sonic the Hedgehog animated series, commonly referred to as Sat AM by fans. Unlike its more comedic counterparts, this series leaned heavily into dystopian storytelling and themes of rebellion. In this episode, Sonic is reunited with his long-lost Uncle Chuck, who was roboticized by Dr. Robotnik and turned into one of his emotionless enforcers. But there's a twist. Uncle Chuck starts to show signs of his old personality returning, giving Sonic a small but powerful glimmer of hope. What makes this episode so emotional isn't just a family reunion. It's the heartbreak of watching someone you love slip away. Chuck briefly regains his free will, but it's fleeting. The moment when he tells Sonic to escape, knowing he can't join him, is deeply moving. It explores the pain of watching a loved one be consumed by something larger than themselves, something they can't control. For kids, it might reflect the confusing emotions tied to illness or mental changes in someone they care about. And for adults revisiting the show, it's a clear metaphor for watching a loved one battle addiction, dementia, or trauma. Ultrasonic taught us that sometimes even small moments of connection can mean everything.
It's a celebration. You can't tell the littles don't stop.
The Littles, Prescription for Disaster. The 1980s cartoon The Littles usually revolved around the adventures of tiny people living in the walls of homes, avoiding danger and helping humans in secret. But Prescription for Disaster took a dramatic turn. When the Littles visit relatives, they encounter a young girl named Angela, whose mother is struggling with drug addiction. It's a surprisingly dark and mature topic for a show aimed at children, but the writers handle it with a delicate, meaningful touch. The episode features one of the most intense sequences in any kid's cartoon from the time. Dinky accidentally ingests the mother's pills, begins hallucinating, while Angela, feeling hopeless and neglected, contemplates taking pills herself. The stakes are high, but what grounds this episode emotionally is its honesty. Angela's pain is raw and relatable. She wants her mom back. The Littles help stop her from following in her mother's footsteps. And the moment when the mother wakes up and sees how close she came to losing her child is sobering. This episode did what many 80s cartoons tried, but rarely succeeded at. It presented addiction as not just a personal flaw, but a family disease. It showed that recovery has to start with realizing who you're hurting the most.
What a wonderful kind of day. If you can learn to work and play and get along with each other.
Arthur. When Carl Met George. PBS's Arthur has always been one of the best examples of children's television tackling real-world issues. When Carl Met George is no exception. This episode introduces Carl, a new character who has Asperger's syndrome, part of the autism spectrum. George, one of Arthur's quieter friends, wants to befriend Carl, but struggles to understand his behaviors, which include avoiding eye contact, being sensitive to noise, and needing structure. Rather than simplify or caricature Carl, the episode presents him with nuance and care. George learns that being different doesn't mean being lesser. There's a fantastic scene where Carl shows George how he sees the world through his love of art and trains, helping George and viewers understand autism from a more empathetic point of view. For many children, this might have been their first time hearing about autism. And for autistic kids watching, it was powerful representation. It's not a flashy episode, but it's one of the most important Arthur ever aired. And in a world that often doesn't explain neurodiversity to young audiences, this one stands out as quietly revolutionary. Batman the Animated Series, Over the Edge. Over the Edge is arguably one of the most intense episodes ever to come out of Batman the Animated Series. It opens with Commissioner Gordon hunting Batman down, and we soon find out why. Batgirl is dead. What follows is a brutal fallout where Gordon discovers his daughter Barbara was Batgirl all along, and he blames Bruce Wayne for her death. Wayne Manor is raided, and everything falls apart. It's revealed by the end that this was all a hallucination, a nightmare Batgirl had after being injured on a mission. But what makes this episode resonate as a very special episode is how deeply it explores consequence, fear, and grief. Barbara's subconscious fears about what her death would do to her family aren't just about guilt. They're about how fragile the entire system is. This episode isn't about crime fighting or good versus evil. It's about what's left behind when secrets come to light and tragedy strikes. For a generation of fans, Over the Edge was the moment Batman stopped being a cartoon and became something emotionally profound. She-Ra. my enemy, my friend, in one of the wildest emotional curveballs in the She-Ra Princess of Power series. It starts with Catra happily feeding Hordak a poison pie, baked by none other than Skeletor, who hopes to make Hordak vanish so he can seize control of the Horde. The chaos kicks in immediately. Hordak gets sick, starts fading from existence thanks to Doomberries, and ends up needing a magical cure that involves someone crying for him. You'd think no one on Etheria would shed a tear for Hordak, but She-Ra, true to form, decides to try anyway. Her journey to help him leads to a wizard named Noah, who bluntly refuses to cry over a tyrant, forcing She-Ra herself to do it out of sheer pity. This bizarre episode wraps layers of slapstick, villain betrayal, and heart into a surprisingly meaningful lesson about empathy. Skeletor's schemes unravel. Catra is left abandoned, and She-Ra's tears, not strength or swords, end up saving the day. Even though Hordak is the series' main antagonist, She-Ra's willingness to help him reminds viewers that compassion isn't about who deserves it. It's about who needs it. It's weird, it's funny, and it's oddly touching. Leave it to She-Ra to turn crying over a poison villain into a very special episode about choosing mercy over revenge. Ben 10 Ultimate Alien, Catch a Falling Star. In a rare blend of psychological drama and superhero action, Catch a Falling Star tells the story of Jennifer Nocturne, a former teen idol who helps the disgraced Carl Nesmith, once the heroic Captain Nemesis, escape from prison. As Jennifer changes her appearance and follows Nesmith across the country, we learn about her troubled past, a childhood lost to fame, an absent father, and a neglectful mother. Gwen and Ben investigate her disappearance, slowly uncovering how far Jennifer has fallen into delusion and emotional dependence. The episode explores themes like manipulation, abandonment, and Stockholm Syndrome, with surprising depth for a series aimed at younger audiences. By the time Jennifer dons the Captain Nemesis mech suit and battles Ben, it's clear she's completely lost her sense of self. Even after being injured, she clings to Nesmith as the only anchor in her life. Gwen ultimately disables the suit and urges medical help for Jennifer, while Nesmith accepts a return to prison. It's a heavy, unsettling episode that illustrates how unaddressed trauma and manipulation can destroy a person's identity. Catch a Falling Star stands as one of Ben 10's most emotionally disturbing episodes, and a cautionary tale about fame, neglect, and the danger of confusing control for love.
But I believe Aang can save the world.
Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Tales of Ba Sing Se. One of the most beloved anthology episodes in cartoon history, The Tales of Ba Sing Se breaks away from the overarching plot of Avatar to focus on quiet, personal moments with each main character. There's Sokka trying slam poetry, Katara and Toph having a spa day, and Momo searching for Appa. But the story that defines this episode and makes it truly special is the tale of Iroh. In this short segment, Iroh helps a series of strangers throughout his day, comforting a crying child, aiding a mugger, and honoring his late son, Lu Ten. The final moments show him alone on a hillside, lighting incense, singing a lullaby through tears. The episode ends with a dedication to Iroh's voice actor, Mako, who had passed away in real life. It's one of the most moving moments in animation history. Without action or spectacle, it teaches viewers about grief, kindness, and remembrance. Iroh's quiet strength becomes a lesson in healing, for himself and for us. Thundercats. Snarf takes up the challenge. Snarf, often seen as the comic relief in Thundercats, finally gets his moment to shine. After the rest of the team is incapacitated by Mum-Ra's latest scheme, it's up to Snarf to step up and rescue his friends. While not heavy in the traditional sense, this episode sends a strong message about underestimation and self-worth. For younger viewers who related to feeling too small or powerless, Snarf's bravery was empowering. He's usually mocked or babied, but here he proves he's just as capable of being a hero. The episode reminds us that courage doesn't come from size or strength. It comes from heart. It's a very special message about believing in yourself, even when no one else does. Gravity Falls, Blendin's Game. Gravity Falls often blends humor and heart, and Blendin's Game is a perfect example. The episode explores Sousa's past, especially his 12th birthday, when his father failed to show up after promising he would. It's framed around a time-traveling plot, but at its core, it's about abandonment and the wounds left by an absent parent. We see young Seuss waiting all day for a phone call that never comes. It's heartbreaking. When the truth is revealed to his friends, they rally to make his birthday special, proving that found family can be just as important, if not more so, than blood relatives. The episode's strength lies in how it balances absurd time antics with raw emotional truth. Seuss's pain is real, and his ability to forgive and find joy in his life anyway is deeply inspiring. The Wild Thornberrys, Forget Me Not. Finally, Forget Me Not from the Wild Thornberrys is a poignant story about loss and remembrance. Eliza wants to find Rebecca, the elephant her father saved 20 years ago. When she finally does, Rebecca is old and dying. The emotional core of the episode is Eliza bonding with Rebecca in her final moments, and being there as she peacefully passes away. This episode stands out in children's TV for how directly it addresses death. There's no sugarcoating it. Rebecca dies and Eliza grieves. But there's also peace in the way Rebecca's daughter Zeta takes over the herd. It's a quiet meditation on the cycle of life and the importance of memory. For any kid who ever lost a pet or a loved one, this episode hit hard. But it also offered comfort. Death is a part of life, and love never really goes away. Sesame Street, Hurricane on Sesame Street. In a landmark multi-episode arc, Sesame Street tackled a natural disaster in a way few children's shows ever had. When a hurricane hits Sesame Street, Big Bird's nest is completely destroyed. This wasn't a one-off situation quickly forgotten by the next scene. His home was gone, and the community had to rally around him to help him cope and rebuild. The storyline approached the topic with gentle honesty, showing the emotional impact of losing something important. The episodes taught children not only about the basics of hurricanes and safety, but also about resilience, grief, and community. Big Bird goes through very real emotions: fear, confusion, sadness, and it's the support from his neighbors that helps him heal. In the real world, these episodes aired shortly after several devastating storms had impacted families across the U.S., making the content not just timely, but deeply personal for many. This arc proved that Sesame Street wasn't just about numbers and letters. It was about empathy and preparation for real life. Small Wonder Woodward and Bernstein. This episode centers on Jamie and Reggie entering a school journalism contest, which leads them to uncover something far more serious than their rejected cafeteria expose. When Vicky casually mentions that new student Chrissy looks like a girl from a missing child milk carton, the boys investigate. The principal dismisses it at first, but Ted finds another carton to confirm the suspicion. Chrissy's father has been on the run with her. Despite the heavy subject matter of parental abduction, the story is wrapped up hastily. Chrissy vanishes again, only for Ted to later receive a phone call saying she's been reunited with her mother. Jamie and Reggie win the contest but can't celebrate, knowing what Chrissy went through. It's a rare attempt by Small Wonder to tackle a real-world issue, though the serious plot is given minimal time and ultimately feels like an afterthought. George Lopez, the show Dyslexic. In this emotional episode, George and Angie are called to a parent-teacher conference and learn that Max may be dyslexic. While Angie takes it seriously, George immediately pushes back, worried Max will be mocked if placed in special education. At home, the tension grows when Angie points out that George may have undiagnosed dyslexia himself, something he flatly denies. But when George struggles with a work report and his mother Benny admits teachers raised similar concerns about him as a child, the truth begins to sink in. What makes this episode special is how it unpacks the generational stigma surrounding learning disabilities, especially in working class and Latino families. George's fear of ridicule is real, but so is the damage caused by ignoring these issues. In the end, George tells Max they'll face this together, and both commit to improving their reading. It's a powerful message about breaking cycles, owning your struggles, and supporting your kids in ways you wish someone had supported you. The mix of humor and heartfelt honesty makes this one of the show's most impactful episodes. The Wonder Years Pilot. The very first episode of The Wonder Years sets the tone for what the series would become, a nostalgic, heartfelt look back at growing up in 1960s America. While it's not a traditional very special episode in structure, its impact is undeniable. The pilot ends with the shocking death of Kevin Arnold's friend Winnie Cooper's brother Brian, who was killed in Vietnam. This moment pulls the rug out from under what felt like a wholesome coming-of-age story, immediately grounding it in the reality of war and loss. The way Kevin comforts Winnie in the woods after she hears the news is one of the most poignant scenes in television history. It reflects the loss of innocence, not just for Kevin, but for an entire generation. The pilot episode serves as both a love letter to childhood and a harsh reminder that it doesn't last forever. By introducing trauma, grief, and world events so early, The Wonder Years made it clear that it wasn't just another family sitcom. It was going to tell the truth about growing up. Boy Meets World, Cult Fiction. Cult Fiction is one of the most famous episodes of Boy Meets World, and for good reason. In this episode, Sean is drawn into a cult run by a seemingly friendly man named Mr. Mac. At first, it seems like he's found a place where he belongs, especially since he's always felt like an outsider. But things spiral quickly, and it becomes clear that this is no ordinary community. It's emotional manipulation in disguise. The episode climaxes with Mr. Turner being seriously injured in a motorcycle crash, and Sean's emotional outburst in the hospital, asking God not to let him die, is heartbreaking. It's a raw performance that shows the depth of Sean's need for stability and love. The writers pull no punches in showing how vulnerable teens can be to exploitation when they feel lost. Cult Fiction remains one of the boldest episodes in teen sitcom history, proving that Boy Meets World wasn't afraid to get serious when it mattered. Sister Sister Father's Day. In the season 6 episode Father's Day, Tia and Tamara believe they may have found their biological father when a visiting photojournalist, Matt Sullivan, arrives on their college campus looking for Tia Landry. The twins become convinced he's their long-lost dad, triggering a whirlwind of emotions and what-if scenarios. Ray is suspicious, especially after discovering Matt has a criminal record, but eventually agrees to have him over for dinner. The dinner is tense, and the family wrestles with whether to embrace this man as part of their lives or protect themselves from potential disappointment. The episode touches on big themes: absent parents, identity, and race. Tamara has to come to terms with the possibility of having a white biological father, while both girls confront the emotional gap left by not knowing their origins. There's no neat resolution, but the show handles the subject with maturity, compassion, and just enough humor to stay true to its tone. Father's Day stands out in the Sister Sister series for its emotional weight and honest reflection on family, showing that sometimes the answers we seek don't come easily, but the conversations they spark matter just as much.
And that greatest wall in China. Oh, that robin with a drum.
Roseanne, The Miracle. In The Miracle, Darlene gives birth prematurely after efforts to stop her labor fail. Her baby girl is born with underdeveloped lungs and can't even cry. The doctors are honest. Survival is unlikely. Roseanne pulls every string she can, bringing in specialists from around the world. but the prognosis stays the same. Meanwhile, Darlene spirals into guilt, blaming herself for everything. David comforts her, reminding her that no one deserves what they're going through, and that all they can do is give their daughter a chance. The episode builds to an emotional crescendo when the women of the Harris side of the family each share a moment with the baby. Jackie, Beverly, Becky, and Roseanne offer words of strength and love before Darlene names her daughter Harris, honoring the powerful women in her life. It's a heartbreaking, raw scene that shows how, even in the face of tragedy, family becomes a source of hope. In a final quiet moment, baby Harris stirs and opens her eyes, proving she's stronger than anyone imagined.
We got each other, sharing the laughter and love.
Growing pains. Thank God it's Friday. In this episode, Mike Seaver attends a party where cocaine is casually being used, throwing him into a dilemma between peer pressure and doing the right thing. This episode tackled the issue of drug use head-on during the height of the Just Say No era, but it did so in a way that felt honest and grounded rather than preachy. Mike isn't a perfect character, and the temptation he faces is real. What sets this episode apart is the way it captures the internal conflict of wanting to fit in while knowing something is wrong. Kirk Cameron delivers a surprisingly mature performance as Mike grapples with his choices and the consequences that could follow. The episode ends with a serious talk between Mike and his father, reinforcing the importance of communication and boundaries. In a sea of drug episodes during the 1980s, this one managed to stand out by trusting its audience to think.
It's so different than where you come from. Ooh, than where you come from.
A Different World, Love Taps. This is one of the most powerful episodes of A Different World, focusing on domestic abuse in young relationships. When Gina starts dating a charming new guy, everything seems fine, until he becomes physically violent. The episode doesn't shy away from the warning signs, showing the shift from verbal manipulation to physical control. It's uncomfortable, and that's exactly the point. This episode aired at a time when abuse in teen or college-age relationships was rarely discussed on television. What made it even more impactful was the way the show used its ensemble to support Gina, showing that survivors need love, patience, and a way out. Ron's anger, Whitley's concern, and Dwayne's disbelief all mirror the reactions people have in real life. Love Taps sent a strong message. No matter how much someone says they love you, violence is never acceptable. Star Trek Deep Space Nine: Hard Time. In one of the darkest and most emotionally intense episodes in the entire Star Trek franchise, Chief Miles O'Brien is falsely convicted of espionage and subjected to a psychological punishment by the Argrathi. 20 years of simulated imprisonment compressed into just a few hours. But to O'Brien, those years were real. He returns to Deep Space Nine deeply traumatized, haunted by the experience and plagued by hallucinations of his former cellmate, HR. Despite support from Keiko and Bashir, O'Brien struggles to adjust, lashing out at his family and coworkers, drowning in guilt and PTSD. The episode reaches a heartbreaking climax when O'Brien nearly takes his own life, confessing he murdered HR in the simulation over a misunderstanding about food. Bashir intervenes and reminds him that feeling remorse means he's still a good man, despite what he believes. This episode powerfully explores mental health, trauma, and survivor's guilt in a way that's rarely seen in science fiction or television in general. With no easy solutions, Hard Time leaves us with a sobering message. Healing is a long process, and sometimes survival itself is an act of courage. Pound Puppies, Bright Eyes Come Home. While many remember Pound Puppies as a sweet cartoon about lovable dogs waiting to be adopted, this episode adds a surprising layer of emotional complexity. Bright Eyes, a hopeful and enthusiastic puppy, dreams of being adopted into the perfect home. Her opportunity seems to arrive when a fast-talking promoter named Sam Quinton offers to make her a star in dog shows. At first, it feels like a dream come true. But things take a turn when the rest of the Pound Puppies uncover that Sam is actually a con man who exploits dogs for profit. Bright Eyes is torn between her ambitions and the reality of what she's giving up. What makes this story resonate is the message that home and family aren't always about flashy opportunities or perfect scenarios. They're about love, trust, and loyalty. In the end, Bright Eyes turns down fame to remain with her Pound family, where she feels safe and valued. Her choice speaks to anyone who has struggled between external validation and staying true to themselves. The episode becomes an unexpectedly heartfelt reflection on finding belonging in the places that love you unconditionally, even if they're not what you originally imagined.
SpongeBob SquarePants!
SpongeBob SquarePants. Treats. Known for its wacky humor and quirky underwater logic, SpongeBob SquarePants rarely gets heavy, but this episode is an exception that subtly tackles the subject of addiction and emotional dependence. SpongeBob buys Gary a new snack, snail bites, as a special treat. Gary quickly becomes obsessed, demanding more and more to the point where he refuses to eat anything else. When the town runs out of snail bites and SpongeBob can no longer provide them, Gary's behavior becomes erratic, emotionally manipulative, and even destructive. The scenes mirror the desperation and withdrawal often associated with substance dependency, but told through a snail's obsession with pet snacks. What elevates this episode beyond typical slapstick is the way it shows SpongeBob struggling with setting boundaries. He wants to make Gary happy, but ultimately learns that enabling unhealthy behavior doesn't help those you love. By the end, SpongeBob takes a stand, not out of anger, but because he realizes that real care sometimes means saying no. It's a surprisingly mature message about the difficulty of supporting someone who's lost control, told with enough absurdity that kids can digest it while adults grasp the deeper meaning. Disney's Doug, Doug's Minor Catastrophe. Doug was a show that specialized in portraying the relatable awkwardness of adolescence, and this episode perfectly encapsulates how easy it is for peer pressure and consumer culture to take hold. When a new snack called knickknacks becomes the latest craze at Doug's school, he's initially just as caught up in the hype as everyone else. However, he soon notices changes in his friend's behavior and starts to feel uneasy about the snack's effects. Determined to learn more, he writes an investigative piece for the school newspaper, uncovering just how manufactured and manipulative the marketing behind the knickknacks really is. This entry stands out for its subtle but pointed critique of how easily kids can be manipulated by advertising and trends. Doug's courage to question the status quo, even when it risks his social standing, sends a powerful message about the importance of independent thinking. It's also a cautionary tale for younger viewers about how easy it is to get swept up in what's popular, and how difficult it can be to speak up when something feels wrong. The show turns a simple school snack into a metaphor for consumerism and conformity, with Doug learning to trust his instincts and use his voice for good. Rocko's Modern Life, I Have No Son. Often lauded for its mature undertones hidden beneath zany visuals, Rocko's Modern Life reaches a particularly emotional peak in this episode. Rocko and Filbert learn that their favorite animated show, The Fatheads, was created by Ralph Bighead, who also happens to be the estranged son of their neighbors, Ed and Bev Bighead. When Rocko tries to reunite the family by inviting Ralph to the Bigheads' anniversary party, deep emotional wounds are revealed. Ed refuses to accept Ralph's life choices, particularly his career in animation, and even disowns him in a fit of toxic pride and embarrassment. The episode explores themes of rejection, generational divides, and the painful truth that not all families heal easily. Ralph's desire for his father's approval is something many viewers can relate to, and the lack of reconciliation is what makes this episode so poignant, emphasizing how family conflicts can linger unresolved. It's a rare moment in animated television that reflects the emotional complexities of real-life estrangement and the silent pain of feeling unseen by your own parents.
Best to the end, number one's our destination.
Pokemon, one journey ends, another begins. Pokemon has had its share of touching moments, but this entry from the Sun and Moon era stands as one of its most heartfelt. Ash and his companions encounter a wild Litten who cares deeply for an elderly Stoutland. It quickly becomes clear that Stoutland is nearing the end of its life. Despite everyone's best efforts to help, nothing can be done to stop the inevitable. After a powerful scene where Stoutland peacefully passes away, the episode shifts its focus to Litten's grief, capturing a deep sense of loss rarely addressed so openly in the series. The emotional depth of this episode is remarkable because it doesn't rely on dramatic music or overwrought dialogue. It allows silence, facial expressions, and setting to carry the weight of mourning. Litten's quiet devastation, followed by its eventual decision to join Ash, symbolizes how we carry on despite the pain of losing loved ones. It's a powerful reminder that every journey includes loss, but also the chance for new connections. For a show often centered on catching and battling creatures, this episode provides a beautifully mature meditation on grief, growth, and healing. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 2012, Lone Rat and Cubs. The 2012 version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles delivered high-quality storytelling throughout its run, but this episode is particularly noteworthy for its emotional insight into Splinter's role as a father. Told in flashback, the story begins with a mutated Splinter discovering the baby turtles, newly transformed and helpless in the aftermath of the mutagen spill. He names them, teaches them, and protects them from danger, especially the threat of the crying. Raphael even earns his distinctive shell crack during a harrowing escape that underscores the constant danger they all faced. What makes this episode exceptional is the way it reframes everything viewers know about the Turtles through the lens of family. Splinter isn't just a wise master. He's a single parent doing everything he can to ensure his children grow up strong, safe, and united. We see the sacrifices he makes, the sleepless nights, the deep affection masked by discipline. It's a rare glimpse into the emotional core of a franchise usually associated with pizza and action. Lone Rat and Cubs is a love letter to fatherhood, resilience, and the bonds that make a family more than just biology.
The power is yours!
Captain Planet and the Planeteers. No Place Like Home. In a show known for its environmental activism, Captain Planet shifted gears in this entry by focusing on homelessness. After being rendered powerless, Gaia wanders the streets with no memory of who she is. She is taken in by Marge, a homeless woman who shows her compassion and kindness. As Gaia experiences life on the streets firsthand, facing danger, hunger, and invisibility, she begins to understand human suffering in a much deeper way. Meanwhile, the Planeteers race against time to locate her and restore balance. This episode breaks the mold by emphasizing that environmental justice must include human dignity. It doesn't frame homelessness as a problem to be fixed, but as a lived experience that demands empathy and systemic change. Gaia's journey reminds viewers that even those with great power are not immune to hardship, and that kindness can come from the most unexpected places. It teaches kids that being a hero isn't about magical rings or flying powers. It's about seeing the humanity in others, especially those society tries to ignore. King of the Hill. Fun with Jane and Jane. Though King of the Hill is a grounded sitcom, this particular episode leans into the surreal to explore the dangers of cult behavior and the human need for belonging. When Luann joins what appears to be a fun sorority, she and Peggy are quickly drawn into its strange rituals and ideology. The group, Omega House, turns out to be a cult that thrives on emotional manipulation. Meanwhile, Hank is caught in his own dilemma involving Buck Strickland's emus, creating a comic contrast that further highlights the absurdity of the situation. The emotional impact comes from watching Peggy and Luann, both searching for validation, fall under the sway of a group that promises love but demands control. The episode becomes a cautionary tale about how easy it is to be swept up in toxic systems when you're vulnerable or isolated. It also emphasizes the importance of healthy skepticism and inner strength. Hank's eventual rescue of them, awkward and understated as it may be, reaffirms the show's core values: common sense, loyalty, and the ability to see through the nonsense. Clone High. Litter kills literally. Clone High cleverly launches into a dark yet satirical storyline when Ponce de Leon, the newest, coolest kid at school and JFK's best friend, becomes the unwitting inspiration for everyone's littering habit. The clones mimic his rebellious trash-tossing behavior, spreading trash across the hallways. When Joan confronts Ponce about his influence, he scoffs and asks, "Will litter kill me?" The episode answers that question with brutal comic irony. Ponce suffers an absurdly elaborate death, impaled by a juice box, sliced by foil wrappers caught in the breeze, handcuffed by plastic soda rings, and suffocated by a plastic bag, all while tripping on a banana peel and cracking his head on a glass bottle, with each accident caused by his own litter. What makes this episode stand out as a very special one is the emotional fallout and absurd community response. JFK spirals into grief, delivering a chaotic speech at Ponce's funeral, climbing into the coffin mid-service, and later hallucinating Ponce as a neon green genie haunting his room, only to angrily discover it's not real. Joan attempts a solemn environmental campaign, while the students vow to stop littering, which leads the school to become so spotless that Glenn the janitor, Ponce's foster father, is laid off. The irony is stark. The episode's anti-littering message ultimately causes harm to the janitor, flipping the expected moral on its head. Through over-the-top comedy blended with real sorrow, the show reflects on grief, identity, and how even noble causes can backfire if not handled mindfully. Tuca and Birdie the Jelly Lakes. Few animated shows tackle trauma with as much nuance and visual creativity as Tuca and Birdie, and this episode is a standout example. Birdie and Tuca take a trip to the Jelly Lakes, a symbolic location tied to Birdie's past. As the episode unfolds, we learn that Birdie was sexually assaulted by her childhood swim coach, a memory she has repressed and avoided. The show's surreal animation shifts styles to reflect her emotional state, including paper-cut sequences that feel fragile and haunting. What makes the episode so powerful is its depiction of healing as non-linear and deeply personal. Birdie's decision to swim to Peanut Butter Island on her own is more than a physical feat. It's an act of reclaiming agency and confronting the past. Tuca's presence as both comic relief and emotional anchor reinforces how vital supportive friendships are in moments of vulnerability. It's a masterclass in how animation can explore deeply adult themes with heart, humor, and honesty.
And he can't talk. He can lead anything.
Ghost Rider What's Up with Alex, Parts 1 to 4. Alex begins acting unusually distant and irritable, especially toward his sister Gabby and the Ghost Rider team. His sudden involvement with the new three-man basketball team, the Dragons, coincides with his mood shift, and when a string of school locker break-ins occurs, rumors begin swirling about drugs. The team senses Alex is hiding something far more serious than simple teen angst, but he refuses to open up, leaving his friends both concerned and suspicious. Ghost Rider sends cryptic clues, urging them to dig deeper into what's troubling him. Their investigation intensifies in the second and third parts as Alex's behavior grows more defensive and erratic. The possibility of drug involvement hovers over the mystery, and his performance in both basketball and the team's sleuthing noticeably suffers. Tensions run high as the friends work through a mix of loyalty, frustration, and fear, guided only by Ghost Rider's puzzling wordplay. A breakthrough comes when one of the team pieces together that Alex's secrecy isn't about his own drug use, but about protecting someone else, deepening the emotional stakes. In the final part, the truth comes out. One of Alex's teammates had offered him marijuana, and Alex's silence stemmed from wanting to shield that friend from serious consequences, not from condoning the act. He admits he feared disappointing his father, alienating his friends, and dragging his teammate into trouble. The team responds with understanding rather than judgment, stressing the importance of honesty and seeking help when facing pressure. The episode closes with a clear message about standing by your values, even when loyalty to a friend makes it difficult to speak up.
Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor?
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Robert F. Kennedy assassination. When Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated in June 1968, it shocked America, and many children were left confused and frightened by the news. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood responded quickly, airing an episode that addressed the tragedy directly, an almost unheard of move in children's television at the time. In this segment, Fred Rogers sits and speaks gently about what assassination means, helping children process the frightening idea that important people can be hurt or killed. He encourages open discussion with trusted adults, stressing that while the world can be scary, there are still helpers and people working for good. Rogers' ability to speak to children without talking down to them is what made this episode so special. He neither sensationalized nor ignored the event, instead creating a safe space for kids to confront their fears. It was an early and powerful example of children's TV being used as a tool for emotional resilience during times of national grief. The segment became a model for how to address tragic current events in an age-appropriate manner. The Cosby Show, Theo and the Kids, Parts 1 and 2. In this two-part story, Theo, the Huxtable's only son, takes a job as a 7th grade counselor for children at a community center. At first, he's unsure how to relate to them, but the role becomes personal when he recognizes that some of their struggles mirror his own experiences with dyslexia. The kids are hesitant to open up, sensing that Theo doesn't fully understand their daily challenges. Over time, he bonds with them by sharing his own story, offering encouragement and finding ways to make learning fun. These episodes stand out for blending heartfelt drama with light comedic moments. The kids' personalities shine through, making them more than just lesson of the week characters. Theo's arc reminds viewers that empathy often comes from shared experiences, and it reinforces the value of role models who have been there. It also gave The Cosby Show an opportunity to revisit Theo's own struggles from earlier seasons, creating a sense of continuity in his character growth. Saved by the Bell, the new class hands off. Katie's new job at the mall gym takes a disturbing turn when her boss, Jack Elliott, begins making inappropriate comments and touching her without consent. Maria witnesses one of these encounters and urges Katie to tell him to stop, later telling their friends that no one deserves unwanted physical contact. Katie admits she's uncomfortable, and after her friends encourage her, she confronts Jack, telling him she doesn't like it and that she has a boyfriend. Instead of backing off, Jack retaliates by cutting her hours, assigning her late shifts, and making her clean the girls' locker room. One night while she's working late, her boyfriend Nicky checks in on her, but Katie hides the truth about the confrontation. After he leaves, Jack offers to restore her hours if she gets with the program. And feeling trapped, Katie reluctantly agrees. Maria eventually tells her lawyer mother, Mrs. Lopez, what's happening, and though Katie is initially upset, she takes Mrs. Lopez's advice to contact Human Resources. Things come to a head when Jack tries to kiss her, prompting Katie to pull away and firmly tell him never to touch her again. Jack threatens to fire her, but she tells him she's reporting him. At that moment, her friends, who have been keeping watch, arrive, forcing Jack to back off and leave. The episode closes with Katie surrounded by her friends, reinforcing the message that harassment is never acceptable and that speaking up, especially with support, can help break the cycle of abuse.
Looked at my kingdom, I was finally there to sit on my throne as the Prince of Bel-Air.
The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Just say yo. This fan-favorite episode takes a sharp turn from the sitcom's usual lighthearted tone. Will accepts a bottle of speed pills from a friend, intending to use them to stay alert for studying. But Carlton unknowingly takes them before a big dance. Carlton ends up in the hospital, and Will is confronted by Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv, who demand answers. The humor is gone as the weight of Will's actions hits. He nearly caused his cousin serious harm. The power of this episode lies in how it strips away the cool image often associated with casual drug use. Carlton, normally the responsible one, becomes the unintended victim, and Will must grapple with the reality that his choices have consequences beyond himself. The emotional hospital scene, punctuated by Will's guilt and Uncle Phil's disappointment, remains one of the show's most impactful moments. Walker Texas Ranger, Lucas, Parts 1 and 2. Chuck Norris's Walker Texas Ranger wasn't usually known for emotional, tear-jerking drama, but Lucas is one of the few exceptions. The two-parter follows a young boy named Lucas, who forms a bond with Walker after witnessing a crime. As the episodes progress, it's revealed that Lucas is HIV positive, and the story confronts the stigma surrounding AIDS in the 90s head-on. Walker becomes a mentor and protector, advocating for Lucas when others treat him as an outcast. The episodes are surprisingly tender for an action-driven series. They depict not only Lucas's physical challenges, but also the emotional toll of being misunderstood and feared by the community. For a primetime CBS drama in the mid-90s, it was a bold choice to focus on compassion, education, and acceptance in the face of a highly stigmatized illness. Tyler Perry's Meet the Browns, Meet the Disorderly. Brianna and her friend Simone hear about a frat party but are told by Will they can't go. Ignoring him, they sneak out anyway. Derek catches Brianna there and warns her about the dangers of drinking from a stranger's beer. After she admits Simone is still at the party, he leaves to get her, only for Simone to arrive and reveal that a guy named Sean tried to assault her, hitting her when she refused. Simone wants to tell her mom, but Brianna convinces her to keep quiet to avoid trouble. When Simone ends up in the hospital, Will confronts Brianna, saying her actions led to the assault and calling her selfish for hiding it. Sasha adds that Brianna shows no remorse. Hardened from her foster care past, Brianna brushes it off until Will threatens to send her back, making her break down and apologize. He lets her stay if she changes her behavior. The episode's message is clear. Silence about abuse protects the abuser, not the victim. Degrassi: The Next Generation, Pride, Parts 1 and 2. Part 1 opens with the gang heading to the beach, tensions bubbling beneath the carefree setting. Marco, who's been hiding his sexuality, is still pretending to be Ellie's boyfriend, a situation that finally comes to a head when Ellie publicly calls it off. Marco's facade comes crashing down under the weight of his own emotional burden, especially when he sees Dylan, who's openly gay, standing up to homophobia. Ghosted by denial and isolation, Marco quietly grapples with the fear that no one truly knows who he is. Part 2 picks up the tension as Spinner, unable to accept Marco's truth, distances himself, making Marco question whether he can even count on old friends. As Marco wonders if he should stay in the closet, everything's challenged when he's violently attacked by homophobic strangers on his way home. His disappearance sends friends into panic mode, Jimmy fights bureaucratic red tape to help, and Marco is found by police, physically shaken and emotionally devastated. This two-parter doesn't offer tidy resolutions, but instead emphasizes the real fear, pain, and courage that newcomers in the LGBTQ+ community face. Tyler Perry's House of Pain, Do the Hustle. Miranda is excited to meet a new real estate client, Travis, even preparing professional pamphlets. After touring a property, she brings him home while the family is away. Alone with her, Travis quickly shifts from business to unwanted advances, dropping sexual innuendos and hitting on her. Miranda manages to get him to leave, but later meets with him again to finish their business. Instead, he becomes more explicit, tries to touch her, and ignores her demand to stop and leave. Travis turns aggressive, insulting her and blocking her from calling Calvin. He continues touching her until Calvin returns. She tells Calvin what's been happening, prompting a fight. CJ arrives in time to break it up and help throw Travis out. The episode's message is clear. Set boundaries, refuse to tolerate harassment, and seek help when facing unsafe situations. How I Met Your Mother. Bad news. Marshall and Lily are in the middle of a stressful time trying to conceive when they visit a fertility specialist, who by coincidence is Barney's doppelganger. The appointment goes smoothly enough, and the couple is reassured there's nothing wrong medically. Meanwhile, the gang gets caught up in a running background gag, the mysterious appearance of numbers counting down from 50 to 1 in random places around their day on magazines, street signs, and props, though no one comments on it directly. The countdown builds a sense of unease that the audience may not even consciously notice until it's nearly done. When Marshall finally gets the good news that he's fertile, he excitedly heads home to celebrate with Lily. But just as the countdown hits to 1, his father's death is revealed in an emotional gut punch. Lily walks up to him, fighting tears, and delivers the bad news. The episode is remembered for its creative and subtle visual storytelling, blending humor with an unexpectedly devastating ending. It serves as a reminder that life's happiest moments can be interrupted without warning, making the time we have with loved ones all the more precious.
Interrupt this program to bring you Courage, the Cowardly Dog Show, starring Courage, the Cowardly Dog.
Courage, the Cowardly Dog. Remembrance of Courage Past. The story begins when Courage notices a missing dog ad on the back of a milk carton, triggering painful memories of his puppyhood. Through flashbacks, we learn how his parents lovingly took him to the vet after a mishap, only for the veterinarian to cruelly kidnap them and send them into space. Courage tried desperately to rescue them but failed, watching helplessly as the rocket launched with his parents trapped inside. The trauma explains Courage's constant fearfulness and loneliness, tempered only by Muriel's compassion when she later found him abandoned and took him in as her own. In the present, Muriel and Eustace unknowingly bring Courage back to the same vet, who plots to launch them into space just as he did with Courage's parents. After a suspenseful chase, Courage musters his bravery, turning the tables by using the vet's own equipment against him. He frees Muriel and Eustace, traps the villain inside the rocket, and watches it blast into space. The episode closes with Courage and Muriel cherishing each other on the porch, while a final scene shows the vet crash landing on an alien planet where he is mauled by angry dogs, including Courage's parents. The story highlights themes of trauma, resilience, and how love can help overcome loss.
So stick with us, 'cause Phineas and Ferb are gonna do it all.
Phineas and Ferb get busted. In this episode, Phineas and Ferb finally get caught by their mother Linda after building a flying car and a tower in the backyard. Their summer of wild invention leads to Candace achieving her long-awaited bust moment. But rather than just punishment, the boys are sent to the Smile Away Reformatory School, a place designed not just to discipline, but to systematically remove their creativity and imagination. The school's rigid structure, crew cuts, and conformist rules show how much the institution seeks to stifle everything that makes Phineas and Ferb themselves. Meanwhile, Candace initially revels in her success, thinking that finally she won't have to try so hard to prove her brothers are up to something. However, Candace quickly realizes that the cost of silence and enforced conformity is too great, for her brothers and for herself. Horrified by the conditions at Reform School, she, with the help of Jeremy, works to expose how wrong it is. Candace's shift from busting her brothers to saving them becomes a journey of recognizing that imagination, creativity, and being true to yourself matter more than rigid order or external approval. The dream sequence twist reinforces that while the what-if scenario is fictional, the emotional truth about creativity's value stakes real ground. The Powerpuff Girls. Candy is Dandy. In Candy is Dandy, the Powerpuff Girls are rewarded with candy by the mayor after saving the day, but the gift quickly spirals into trouble. What begins as simple indulgence becomes dependency. The girls become increasingly distracted, less responsible, and more reckless as the candy becomes their focus. Their crime-fighting efficiency drops, and they begin to suffer from the side effects of overindulgence. The plot clearly frames candy as a metaphor for something that seems innocent but becomes harmful when misused. Eventually, the power of their addiction threatens Townsville itself. the girls must come to realize that their candy obsession has consequences, and not just for them, but for everyone relying on them. In the final act, they push through their cravings to restore order and save the day. The story delivers a layered message. Rewards are nice, but excess of anything, even things meant to reward, can corrupt purpose. Moderation and self-control matter. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 2003, Insane in the Membrane. This episode is one of the darker, more disturbing entries in the 2003 TMNT series. Baxter Stockman has transferred his brain into a new clone body that is meant to restore him, but the new body starts deteriorating horrifically. Through a series of flashbacks, we see his earlier life, his young experiments, the high hopes, his mother's encouragement, and then his descent into betrayal, disfigurement, and a shattered identity. As his body fails, he becomes haunted by guilt, hallucinations, and madness, blaming others, including April, for what went wrong. The flashbacks aren't just exposition. They frame Stockman's character arc, showing how ambition, pride, and early trauma shaped him into a villain who fears decay, rejection, and failure. What makes Insane in the Membrane especially notable is that it was originally pulled from U.S. broadcast by Fox's standards and practices for being too graphic, though it did air in other countries and later became available in the U.S. via DVD and Nicktoons. The imagined horror of a body decomposing and Stockman's physical and mental collapse pushed the boundaries of what kids' animation usually shows. The episode hits hard: the fear of losing what makes you human, the fallout of unchecked hubris, and how trying to outrun one's past can lead to self-destruction.
Someone once told me the grass is much greener on the other side.
As told by Ginger, Hello Stranger, Ginger receives a late graduation card from her estranged father Jonas, which congratulates her on finishing 6th grade and includes a phone number. Encouraged by this, she invites him to hear her poem Hello Stranger at the upcoming school art and reading festival. She spends time worrying, hoping he will show, lingering on the mailbox and rehearsing her feelings, driven by the possibility that this time he might actually follow through. The poem becomes not just art, but a public expression of her longing for connection and recognition from a father who has let her down before. When the day of the reading comes, Ginger attends with her friends, family, and schoolmates in the audience. She reads her poem, scanning faces for Jonas, but she never sees him. The absence hits her deeply, but the crowd's applause and the delivery of sunflowers with a note from Dad, arranged by her mother Lois, offer small comfort. It becomes clear that Ginger must reconcile her hopeful expectations with the reality that her father's promises are often empty. The episode's message centers on self-worth, that one's talent and voice matter even when validation from important people doesn't arrive, and sometimes love from others who show up consistently is just as meaningful. Madeline, Madeline's Rescue Special. This special begins tranquilly as Madeline and the other girls at the boarding school head out for their daily walk across a footbridge over the Seine. Madeline spots a stray black cat on the rampart, chases it, loses balance, slips, and falls into the river, knowing she cannot swim. Panic ensues. Attempts are made to save her with life preservers and by poles, but she drifts away in the current until a brave stray dog dives in and rescues her, pulling her back to shore. Once safe, she is cared for by Miss Clavel and the girls, but the emotional impact lingers. The dog, later named Genevieve, follows them home and is warmly accepted, on condition they try to find her owner. As the girls bond with Genevieve, conflict arises when Lord Cuckoo-Face, a board trustee who doesn't allow pets in school, orders her to be removed. Madeline and her friends search the city for Genevieve after she disappears, with Madeline deeply distressed at her absence. But by nightfall, Genevieve returns. The next morning, Lord Cuckoo-Face returns to inspect the school and sees her with the girls. He initially demands she be sent away again, but the love the girls show for her and Genevieve's pure-hearted nature soften his stance. To everyone's delight, she is allowed to stay. The special emphasizes themes of compassion and collective care. Sometimes rules exist without heart, and standing up for what feels right can change even rigid authority. The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, the shade of it all. This episode takes a bold step in addressing colorism within the Black community. Dejonae Jones is excited about joining a prestigious sorority, only to discover that Miss Rosalie, the head of the group, enforces strict and biased beauty standards. Rosalie only accepts light-skinned Black girls into the sorority's beauty pageant, dismissing Dejonae's worth solely because of her darker skin tone. Through this setup, the episode dives into the painful reality that some of the harshest forms of discrimination come not from outside the community, but from within, echoing elitism, respectability politics, and outdated standards of beauty. The message goes beyond Dejonae's personal rejection, touching on the lasting impact of colorism on Black girls today. The story makes it clear that beauty cannot and should not be defined by skin tone. Whether light or dark, every shade deserves validation and celebration. By showing Dejonae's hurt, confusion, and eventual recognition of her own value, the episode encourages viewers to challenge discriminatory beauty standards and embrace a broader, more inclusive vision of what beauty means. It's a powerful reminder that skin color is just one aspect of identity and humanity, not a barrier to dignity or opportunity. The Simpsons, Alone Again, Natura Diddley. One of The Simpsons' most emotionally resonant episodes deals with unexpected loss and the shattering of normal life. During a trip to a racetrack, Maude Flanders accidentally dies when Homer's antics combine with a cheerleader t-shirt shooting cannon, and free shirts cause her to fall from bleachers. Ned Flanders, her husband, is immediately thrown into grief, facing a life without Maude. The show pulls no punches watching Ned process storefronts, empty home routines, and his shaken faith. Beyond Ned's mourning, the episode also explores grappling with faith, guilt, and the meaning of community support. Homer, racked with guilt over his indirect role in Maude's death, tries to help Ned move on even when Ned withdraws from church and spiritual life. The turning point comes when Ned hears a Christian rock band sing and feels something shift. Hope flickers. It's bittersweet and raw. Moving forward doesn't mean forgetting. The message here: loss is universal and inevitable, but grief, love, and belief can give life new shape. Capital Critters, Opie's Choice. The episode's title is a metaphor for drug addiction, and it plays out in surprisingly dark ways. Jamet, normally portrayed as a goofy character, becomes a kind of local dealer when he starts selling caffeine pills to Opie the squirrel. What begins as a way for Jamet to make easy money quickly spirals, as Opie grows dependent on the pills and even robs his family's food to keep paying Jamet. The storyline draws a direct line between the destructive cycle of addiction and the exploitation of someone vulnerable. Max, who despises Jamet's actions, finds himself entangled when some tougher pill pushers think he's the one selling to Opie, and they don't take kindly to competition. The situation escalates into shocking territory when the rival dealers retaliate by overdosing Max on pills in an attempt to kill him. This near-fatal moment horrifies Jamet, who is confronted with the real consequences of his choices. For a short-lived cartoon about animals living under the White House, the episode takes a chillingly realistic look at addiction, peer pressure, and the ripple effects of exploiting others. Jamet's regret and Opie's desperation drive home the point that drug abuse devastates not just individuals, but families and communities. It's one of the starkest examples of early 90s animation tackling very adult issues. Daria Arts and Crafts. Daria and Jane submit a poster critiquing societal beauty standards for a school contest. Their design, bold and honest, draws sharp criticism from school authorities who pressure them to make it more positive or palatable. The girls face censorship and the expectation that art should comfort rather than challenge. Daria and Jane debate whether to change their work or keep it raw, grappling with the idea that art which disturbs is often art that matters. By refusing to compromise, they defend the notion that discomfort and critique have value. Though they risk penalty, Daria and Jane's courage reinforces the integrity of expression over conformity. The episode highlights how voices that challenge norms, many of which are harmful or superficial, deserve space. It's a reminder that art isn't just entertainment. It can question, provoke, and push society to reflect.
Maybe the world is blind, or just a little unkind.
Punky Brewster, Just Say No. This episode came at the height of the anti-drug movement of the 1980s, when Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign was everywhere. Punky and her friends are invited to join what they think is a cool after-school group, only to discover that part of membership involves trying drugs. Punky, normally confident and upbeat, suddenly feels caught between wanting to belong and knowing the danger. Seeing her hesitate shows how even a strong character can feel real peer pressure, and that makes the message relatable for young audiences. In the end, Punky makes the right choice, refusing the drugs and staying true to her values. While the episode tied closely to a national campaign and may feel a little heavy-handed today, at the time it delivered an important lesson to its target audience. Saying no isn't weakness, it's strength. For many young viewers, Punky's choice provided a blueprint for how to deal with similar pressure in real life. Alf, We're So Sorry, Uncle Albert. This episode stands out as one of the darkest and most emotional stories in Alf. It begins with Willie telling Alf that he must stay in a backyard tent while Uncle Albert visits. Alf resents the change, complains about missing TV, and humorously bungles Willie's attempts to pitch the tent by eating the supplies. When Uncle Albert arrives, however, he surprises everyone by being generous and kind, showering the Tanners with gifts and paying for dinner with uncharacteristic warmth. Albert later reveals he had a heart attack, which made him rethink his life and try to make amends with family. For once, the Tanners believe they're seeing a new side of him. Tragedy strikes when Albert stumbles upon Alf in the backyard tent and, shocked at seeing an alien, collapses and dies. Alf initially treats death through his Dalmatian perspective, joking that it should be celebrated and hiding his guilt behind humor. But his remorse soon surfaces as he fears his face literally killed Albert, and he laments that Albert didn't have enough time to make up for his past. In a moving conversation with Lynn, Alf learns that Albert had already begun making amends by visiting and showing kindness. By the end, Alf finds comfort in this, and he and Willie share a reflective moment under the stars, acknowledging both Albert's flaws and his growth. The episode is remembered not only for its mix of humor and tragedy, but also for pushing a family sitcom into unexpectedly heavy territory.
Some things are meant to be, so give me your best and leave the rest to me. Leave it all.
iCarly, I Want to Stay with Spencer. During one of Carly's webcasts, Spencer proudly shows off his newest sculpture, the Fan of Hammers. But things go wrong quickly when the contraption malfunctions, sending hammers flying, nearly injuring Carly on camera. This incident, combined with Spencer's history of eccentric behavior, prompts their grandfather, Granddad Shay, to visit. He insists that Spencer is too irresponsible to be Carly's guardian and wants her to move with him to Yakima. The conflict deepens when Carly learns their father agrees with her grandfather, leaving her torn between her loyalty to Spencer and the adults questioning his maturity. The episode explores Spencer's journey toward proving himself as a responsible caretaker. Carly tries everything from dressing like a punk to showing solidarity, but Spencer accidentally fuels his grandfather's doubts when a kitchen fire breaks out. In the end, it's not grand gestures, but small acts of care that make the difference, like Spencer keeping Carly's childhood asthma inhaler just in case. That moment convinces Granddad Shay that Spencer truly looks out for Carly's well-being in ways that matter. Carly stays with her brother, reaffirming the theme that love, attention, and devotion are what make a family whole, even if it doesn't look traditional. Roundhouse, Gang Violence. Though Roundhouse was known for sketch comedy and musical numbers, this episode broke format to tackle something deadly serious: gang violence. Adam faces pressure at school to align with one of several gangs after fights begin to break out. For a teenager trying to stay safe and find his identity, the lure of joining a gang becomes very real, and Adam's struggle mirrors what many young viewers may have seen in their own communities. The show takes a clear stance by highlighting how gangs manipulate fear and vulnerability, preying on those who feel isolated. By presenting Adam's story, Roundhouse reminded its audience that joining a gang isn't empowerment. It's a trap that can cost you freedom, safety, and even your life. For a variety show marketed to kids and teens, this pivot into realism was bold and unforgettable. Moesha Reunion. Frank organizes a reunion of Moesha's childhood playgroup for a Saturn sales pitch, but what begins as a lighthearted setup evolves into a powerful exploration of interracial dating. Mo reconnects with Matt, a childhood friend who is white, and sparks fly between them. Excited about this new connection, she agrees to a date. Frank, upon hearing about it, advises her against dating Matt. While protective, his words also reveal how even well-meaning family members can reflect social prejudices, only for the two to face racist remarks and prejudice while out together. Mo is shaken but also reflective about what the relationship means to her. The episode leaves Mo questioning whether love can withstand racism and what sacrifices come with pursuing a relationship that others don't accept. For a teen sitcom, it was a courageous move to address the realities of race and love. Smallville, Ryan. Smallville's blend of superhero mythology and human drama reached an emotional high point in this episode. Clark grows close to Ryan, a boy with telepathic powers who can hear people's thoughts. Ryan becomes like a younger brother to Clark, sharing secrets and giving Clark someone to protect. But tragedy looms as Ryan's medical condition worsens, and no matter how powerful Clark is, there is nothing he can do to stop the outcome. The episode is heartbreaking because it forces Clark to realize that even Superman can't save everyone. Watching Ryan decline and knowing his death is inevitable puts Clark in a position of helplessness that he rarely experiences. The story emphasizes mortality, compassion, and the bittersweet truth that sometimes the greatest power we can show is being present for those we love, even when we can't change their fate. Rock, You Shouldn't Have to Lie. This powerful episode of Rock juggled two difficult subjects at once, weaving them into the everyday life of its characters. In the main plot, Rock learns about Damon, a teenager in the neighborhood who is sliding toward gang life after he killed Sheila's friend Terrence earlier in the series. Rather than respond with anger or punishment, Rock makes a surprising move. He approaches Andre, the local drug dealer, to intervene. Andre has lived the consequences Damon is heading toward, and Rock believes his voice will reach Damon in a way that lectures from adults won't. In a brutally honest conversation, Andre paints a grim picture of prison life and the wasted opportunities that come with gang involvement. The episode doesn't glamorize Andre, he's still a dealer, but it shows the value of real, unfiltered honesty in steering young men away from crime. Running alongside this is Eleanor's emotional storyline. She reconnects with a nursing school friend and is stunned to learn that she has contracted HIV, which was also passed down to her daughter. This subplot adds depth to the episode by highlighting the stigma and fear surrounding AIDS during the early 90s, a time when misinformation was rampant. Eleanor's compassion and sadness reflect the challenges many families face when confronted with the epidemic. Together, these stories capture the essence of Rock as a socially conscious sitcom that wasn't afraid to confront the hardest issues of its time. By linking gang violence and HIV and AIDS in one episode, the show reminded viewers that real life can't be neatly separated into single issues, and that compassion, honesty, and community support are critical tools for survival.
Looked at my kingdom, I was finally there to sit on my throne as the Prince of Bel-Air.
The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Not with my cousin you don't. Ashley's growing independence takes center stage in this episode. While testing out a new intercom system, Will and Carlton overhear Ashley talking about possibly having sex with her boyfriend before he leaves town. Their protective instincts kick in immediately, causing Ashley to storm out in anger. In a private moment, Ashley and her boyfriend both admit they aren't ready, showing maturity far beyond what her family assumed. Will's later apology drives home the heart of the story. He admits he still struggled to see Ashley as the young woman she has become, rather than the little girl he met years ago. Ashley's forgiveness reinforces that overprotectiveness often comes from love, but respect and trust are equally important. It was a rare sitcom moment that encouraged open conversations about teenage sexuality and autonomy. Mr. Belvedere, Homecoming. This episode of Mr. Belvedere was groundbreaking because it directly addressed the issue of dating, something almost unheard of on network family sitcoms in the 1980s. Heather is thrilled when she's asked to homecoming by Keith, a star football player at her school. What begins as an exciting night soon turns harrowing when Keith attempts to rape her after the dance. Heather manages to fight him off before the assault can continue, but the experience leaves her deeply shaken and unable to go to the homecoming game. The writers show Heather not just as a victim, but as a young woman processing trauma in real time, struggling with fear, shame, and confusion over what to do next. Encouraged by Mr. Belvedere's calm wisdom, Heather eventually opens up to her parents. Her father George confronts Keith directly, showing anger, but also an unwavering commitment to protect his daughter. The episode's power came from refusing to minimize the incident or turn it into a lesson of the week subplot. Instead, it lingered on Heather's vulnerability and her family's support, driving home that speaking out is vital. Airing such a storyline in prime time forced audiences to reckon with the taboo subject and validated the experiences of viewers who had faced similar trauma. In many ways, it marked one of the boldest, very special episodes of its era. The Bernie Mac Show, Here to Stay. Bernie opens the episode frustrated, pointing out that the kids are no longer just temporary house guests, but are acting like they fully live there. He complains about them constantly stealing his things, breaking his stuff, and messing with his personal belongings. To re-establish control, Bernie literally marks his territory, labeling food and drinks with instructions on when the kids can and can't touch them. Eventually, he decides to compromise by giving each child an allowance, hoping to teach them responsibility and independence. But after they forget chores like taking out the trash and cleaning the kitchen, Bernie erupts in anger. His frustration deepens when he finds a telescope hidden under Jordan's bed. When Bernie asks where it came from, Jordan lies, saying Bernie bought it for him. The truth comes out. Jordan had stolen money meant for his inhaler, bought the cheaper generic version, and used the rest to purchase the telescope. Although Bernie punishes him, Jordan runs away in guilt and sadness. The family begins searching and eventually finds him on the roof with the telescope. Jordan explains that he wanted to see the Sears Tower back in Chicago because he misses his old life, and most of all, his mom. This revelation softens Bernie's anger, reminding him, and the audience, that the kids' misbehavior often comes from longing and pain rather than simple rebellion. The episode balances humor with vulnerability, showing Bernie's growth as both a guardian and a father figure. Over the course of 8 seasons, Blackish carved out a name for itself by finding humor in the uncomfortable parts of life, especially when it came to being black in America. The show tackled everything from colorism and police brutality to class privilege and political polarization. But at the end of season 4, Blackish did something radically different. It dropped the jokes. In a multi-episode arc that felt more like This Is Us than a primetime sitcom, the show took a deep and emotional dive into Dre and Bo's marriage, bringing them to the brink of divorce. This wasn't your typical sitcom reset storyline. It was raw, blue-filtered, and left audiences holding their breath. As someone whose parents divorced when I was a teenager in the early 2000s, these episodes hit differently. Seeing a couple you followed for years, who seemed messy but solid, suddenly unravel with almost no laughter to cushion the blow was tough. But it was also important, because as these episodes showed, divorce and separation are deeply emotional, not always tied up neatly, and can leave scars even when people try their best. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the 4-episode arc: 53%, Blue Valentine, Collateral Damage, and Dream Home, breaking down each episode's plot, tone, and the bigger message it leaves behind.
53% of American marriages fail. That's like playing Russian roulette with a gun that has 3 bullets in it.
53%, Season 4, Episode 20. The trouble begins when baby Devante misses a key developmental milestone: walking. It seems small, but it unearths bigger cracks in Dre and Bo's marriage. As they bicker more than usual, they try marriage counseling again, But it feels different this time. Dre and Bo swing from hopeful to hostile in a matter of minutes. Their fights grow increasingly pointed, and instead of feeling like disagreements, they feel like resentment. Even the normally warm moments are laced with tension. The episode's title comes from Dre explaining that 53% of marriages end in divorce. He cites it while trying to downplay what's happening, but it sets a heavy tone. Visually and emotionally, 53% sets the mood for the entire arc. The jokes are limited, the cinematography is muted, and the tension is palpable. The writers do a great job of showing that this couple, who we've grown to love for their chemistry and balance, are suddenly losing that spark. The baby milestone serves as a metaphor. Devante eventually walks, but it's unclear if Dre and Bo can take the same step forward. The symbolism is subtle but effective. While their son progresses, they seem stuck in a cycle of blame and emotional distance. The deeper message here is about long-term relationships and how easy it is to drift apart even when love is still present. Couples can hit patches where communication fails, therapy feels like a band-aid, and even shared joy, like watching your baby walk, can't fix underlying resentment. For those watching with lived experience, the episode reflects how relationships aren't always saved by grand gestures. Sometimes the first step to healing is just admitting how broken things really are. Blue Valentine, Season 4, Episode 21. This episode opens with an eerie tonal shift. The usual bright colors of the Johnson household are gone, replaced by a cold blue filter that mirrors the growing emotional chill between Dre and Bo. After the kids leave for school, their cheerful facade drops, and the silence between them is deafening. The cinematography is intentional and jarring. We watch as Dre and Bo fail to connect over even the smallest things. Kitchen renovations, chores, and flashbacks to happier times only highlight how much has changed. There's no explosive moment, just quiet, creeping sadness. Blue Valentine doubles down on the arc's emotional realism. The use of moody piano covers of songs like Where Is My Mind and Fix You might feel heavy-handed, but the performances keep it grounded. Dre and Bo try to reignite the flame, but every attempt feels forced. They're not fighting anymore, just coexisting with a growing void between them. Even when they attempt to reminisce about better days, it doesn't feel like nostalgia. It feels like mourning. This is a turning point where hope starts to feel like denial. What this episode communicates is the reality of emotional detachment. Sometimes marriages don't end with a bang. They dissolve quietly, like a balloon deflating over time. The writers challenge the audience to sit with discomfort, to acknowledge that love doesn't always conquer all. The silence in this episode is louder than any argument, and for those of us who've lived through parental separation, that silence is hauntingly familiar.
Your mother and I are not getting a divorce. We're just taking some space.
We're just taking some space. Totally temporary.
Collateral Damage, Season 4, Episode 22. By this episode, Dre has moved out. The couple experiments with nesting, taking turns staying in the family home, so the kids aren't disrupted. But even with this thoughtful approach, the damage is evident. The kids share narration duties for the first time, a powerful reminder that while Dre and Bo's marriage is the central conflict, the fallout affects everyone. Diane becomes more withdrawn, Junior tries to play the adult, and even Jack's usual humor can't lighten the mood. Meanwhile, Dre and Bo fight in front of everyone, shattering the illusion of stability they were trying to preserve. Collateral Damage does a great job of showing how well-intentioned decisions can still lead to heartbreak. The nesting arrangement, meant to keep the children safe, ends up highlighting the instability of the situation. Dre and Bo go from tender moments to brutal arguments in a blink. When Dre finds out Bo returned to work without telling him, it sparks a vicious fight that ends with their children crying. Even Ruby and Pops, often comic relief, struggle to stay neutral. Everyone is hurting, and no one knows what to do. The episode's message is clear. Kids always feel the impact. Even the most mature divorce strategies can't shield children from emotional pain. When the people they depend on for stability are falling apart, it leaves an impression that lasts for life. For viewers like me, who experience divorce firsthand, it's a painful but honest portrayal. The show doesn't pretend that love alone can protect families from falling apart. Sometimes the damage is already done, and it hits everyone.
When your lives are as intertwined as ours, being separate isn't so easy.
Dream Home, Season 4, Episode 23. The season finale begins with Dre moving into his dream home, a slick bachelor pad that's more fantasy than functional. It's sterile, full of sharp corners and empty space, unlike the home he just left. Bo, meanwhile, struggles with solo parenting. She worries about security, struggles with logistics, and quietly starts to realize how much her identity has been tied to being part of a couple. Both get pep talks, Dre from Pops and Bo from Ruby, that encourage them to explore who they are as individuals. And for a while, it seems like they might make the separation permanent. Everything changes when Bo's father dies. In the middle of the night, she calls Dre, crying, broken, and vulnerable. He rushes over. The grief becomes a bridge. He stays for the funeral and doesn't leave. Therapy resumes, but it's different now. This time, they want to do the work. Not because they're afraid of failing, but because they want to choose each other again. In a beautiful final montage, we see them grow closer on the therapy couch, going from sitting apart to sitting side by side. It's not a perfect resolution, but it's hopeful. The takeaway from Dream Home is powerful. Reconciliation isn't about returning to what was, but choosing to build something new. Dre and Bo don't get back together because the script demands it. They get back together because after all the pain, they realize they still want to. The message here is that healing takes work, patience, and honesty. It's not always a happy ending, but it can be a new beginning. And for those watching who've seen divorce unfold in real life, it's a reminder that sometimes the dream home isn't a house. It's a family willing to fight for each other. Watching this arc again brought back a lot of emotions I thought I had put away. My parents divorced when I was a teenager in the early 2000s, and I remember those silent nights with my younger brothers, the tension in the air and the confusion. Blackish didn't sugarcoat any of it. It showed how two people who love each other deeply can still lose their way. It showed how that pain trickles down to the kids. But it also showed how healing is possible. If not always neat, then at least honest. Dre and Bo's journey isn't just about marriage. It's about identity, growth, pain, and choice. That blue filter eventually lifted, and in its place came warmth, understanding, and a renewed sense of commitment. Not just between Dre and Bo, but between the show and its audience. This arc may have been difficult to watch, but it was also powerful, honest, and necessary. For me, it stirred up memories of my own family's struggles, but it also reminded me of how important healing and communication are. If this breakdown helped anyone feel seen or heard, then Blackish did its job. Welcome back to Very Special Movies, the series where we take a closer look at the films that left a lasting impact on us far beyond the final scene. This is a spin-off of our Very Special Episodes series, but instead of tackling tough subjects in 22-minute chunks, these stories hit us all at once, wrapped in unforgettable feature-length packages. In Part 2, we're shifting focus to animated films, the ones many of us watched growing up, expecting fun, songs, maybe some animal sidekicks, only to be blindsided by heartbreak, deep truths, and major life lessons we weren't always ready for. These movies didn't shy away from grief, trauma, war, loss, or environmental collapse. Some of them still haunt us. Others gave us comfort when we didn't even know we needed it. And all of them prove that just because a movie is animated doesn't mean it's not profound. Let's run it back with 10 emotional, meaningful, and yes, very special animated movies that left their mark on our hearts.
What is this place?
This is Fern Gully.
Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest, 1992. When people talk about early environmental awareness in pop culture, Fern Gully always comes up, and for good reason. This wasn't your typical animated fairy tale. It was a surprisingly intense eco-fable, warning us about deforestation, pollution, and the devastation caused by human greed. The rainforest setting is stunning and alive with magic, but that magic is threatened by a very real enemy, industry. Hexus, voiced with unforgettable menace by Tim Curry, isn't just a villain. He's the embodiment of environmental destruction. A literal oil monster, he grows stronger the more the forest is destroyed. For a movie aimed at children, Fern Gully doesn't sugarcoat its message. It's a plea for balance between nature and progress. And watching it now, it feels more urgent than ever. The film even ends with a heavy truth. The forest may survive this time, but only if we stay vigilant. That's a lot for a kid's movie, and that's exactly what made it special.
What's the face?
What face?
That face.
There's no face. This is my face, that's all.
You know I know you better than that, Mulan.
Mulan 2, 2004. While the first Mulan focused on honor and bravery, Mulan 2 dives into the idea of moral conflict, doing what's right when it conflicts with what's expected. The film takes its time to show the emotional strain of arranged marriages for peace, and the value of love that grows freely. 3 princesses are expected to marry strangers to avoid war, but they fall in love with their protectors, turning the journey into a question of ethics, duty, and agency. The film's darkest moment comes when Shang sacrifices himself, seemingly falling to his death to save Mulan. For a Disney sequel, this was a shocking moment that forced its characters and audience to confront grief. Thankfully, he survives, but the damage is done. Mulan 2 takes its audience seriously, delivering a narrative about emotional complexity and doing what's right, not just what's expected.
Guys, you're overreacting. Nobody is dying. A dead mouse!
Great.
I'm gonna be sick.
It's the House of the Dead. What are we gonna do? We're gonna get rabies. Get off of me!
Inside Out, 2015. Pixar has always been known for its emotional storytelling, but Inside Out took it to another level. Rather than focus on a traditional villain or adventure, the real conflict is internal. It's the emotional unraveling of an 11-year-old girl named Riley after moving to a new city. Joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust battle for control. But what makes the film brilliant is how it reframes sadness as something not to be feared, but embraced. The character of Bing Bong, Riley's imaginary friend, represents childhood innocence and imagination. His sacrifice in the memory dump, cheering "Take her to the moon for me," is one of the most tear-jerking moments in any animated film. But even more powerful is the realization that sadness connects us. It invites comfort, empathy, and healing. For young kids, Inside Out was a deep introduction to mental health. For adults, it was therapy in disguise. And for everyone, it's a reminder that it's okay not to be okay. Bambi, 1942. Long before we had Pixar montages or anti-war metaphors, Bambi gave audiences the first truly heartbreaking moment in animation history, the death of Bambi's mother. What makes that scene so haunting isn't just the gunshot, it's the silence afterward, the snow, Bambi's confusion, the absence of a comforting answer. In that moment, children across the world learned what it meant to lose something they love. But Bambi doesn't stop there. It's about growing up in a world where danger exists, learning independence, resilience, and respect for life. Released during World War II, the film quietly echoed the uncertainty of the time, showing that nature is both beautiful and cruel. Even now, Bambi holds up as one of the most emotionally mature stories ever told through animation. And it proved that animation could handle weighty, real-life themes with grace.
I would like to award you the highest honor I can bestow. The Ellie Badge.
Up, 2009. Before the title card even appears, Up delivers an emotional roller coaster that leaves audiences stunned. The silent montage of Carl and Ellie's life, their love, their dreams, their heartbreak over infertility, and ultimately Ellie's death, is one of the most iconic openings in movie history. It's told without words, but it says everything about grief, aging, and unfulfilled dreams. But the movie's real message lies in what comes after. Carl is a man stuck in the past, holding onto a house full of memories. But through his unlikely bond with Russell, a wilderness scout desperate for approval, Carl learns that adventure isn't always about exotic locations. Sometimes it's about opening your heart again. Up is a celebration of new beginnings, found family, and the healing power of love and laughter. It's a masterclass in emotional storytelling.
I lost my family in the big earthshake. You want to go with me? Yeah!
The Land Before Time, 1988. Don Bluth didn't believe in talking down to children, and The Land Before Time is proof of that. From the very beginning, the film pulls no punches. Littlefoot's mother is killed by a sharp tooth, leaving him to fend for himself in a dangerous world. Her death is slow, painful, and tragically noble. It's a formative moment for anyone who watched it, the first time many kids experience loss on screen. But the heart of the film lies in the bond Littlefoot forms with other young dinosaurs. They're scared, alone, and desperate for survival. And in their journey to the Great Valley, they learn about friendship, sacrifice, and perseverance. With minimal dialogue and a heavy reliance on mood and music, The Land Before Time is quiet, serious, and deeply moving. The kind of animated film that respects its audience enough to tell them the truth. Life can be hard, but we're stronger together. An American Tale, 1986. An American Tale is one of the most emotionally mature animated films ever made, and it's about mice. But these mice represent real people, immigrants fleeing persecution for a better life. When Fievel is separated from his family, it's more than a story about getting lost. It's about survival, hope, and how far we'll go for the people we love. Set in a grim industrial version of New York City, the movie doesn't shy away from cruelty. There's exploitation, xenophobia, and heartbreaking loneliness. But through it all, An American Tale clings to the dream that things can get better. The song Somewhere Out There isn't just a lullaby, it's a prayer. A desperate belief that no matter how far apart we are, love will connect us. And for anyone who's ever felt lost, that message hits hard.
Chin up. And I did.
What is your name, please?
My name is Charlotte. Charlotte A. Cavatica.
Charlotte's Web, 1973. Some stories stay with you your whole life, and Charlotte's Web is one of them. The friendship between Charlotte the Spider and Wilbur the Pig is gentle, kind, and selfless. Charlotte saves Wilbur from being slaughtered, not for any reward, but because she believes every life matters, even a pig's. Her web-spun words, some pig, radiant, terrific, change how others see Wilbur, but more importantly, how Wilbur sees himself. When Charlotte dies quietly after giving birth, it's one of the most quietly devastating moments in animation. There's no fanfare, no music swelling, just loss, and the lingering warmth of her kindness. Charlotte's Web teaches that acts of love don't always get noticed, but they matter. It's a story about the legacy we leave behind, and how even the smallest voice can make a big difference.
Don't move.
The Iron Giant, 1999. Set against the backdrop of Cold War paranoia, The Iron Giant is a powerful anti-war film wrapped in a story about friendship and identity. Hogarth discovers a giant metal robot who fell from the sky, a weapon of mass destruction with no memory. But instead of becoming the villain he was built to be, the giant becomes a protector. With Hogarth's help, he learns that he can be more than what he was made for. The giant's final act, sacrificing himself to stop a nuclear missile after whispering, "I am not a gun," is unforgettable. It's a message about free will, redemption, and the power of choosing kindness. The Iron Giant flopped when it was first released, but over time it's become one of the most beloved and respected animated films ever made. And for good reason. It reminds us that even the biggest weapons can choose to be heroes. Watership Down, 1978. Watership Down is a movie that parents still regret showing their kids, and for good reason. Its brutal violence, dark tone, and haunting imagery make it one of the most intense animated films ever made. But beneath the gore is a deeply moving allegory about survival, authoritarianism, and freedom. These aren't just rabbits. They're refugees fighting for a home in a world that wants them gone. With unforgettable animation and a chilling score, Watership Down isn't here to entertain, it's here to challenge you. It asks hard questions about fear, violence, and the price of freedom. And it forces its audience to reckon with the reality that peace is not guaranteed. It must be earned, fought for, and sometimes paid for in blood. It's disturbing, yes, but unforgettable in its message and ambition. These weren't just cartoons. They were stories that shaped us. Movies that made us cry, made us think, and made us grow. Whether they taught us about grief, injustice, hope, or the power of compassion, these animated classics prove that kid-friendly doesn't have to mean easy. Welcome back to Very Special Movies, the film-focused companion to our Very Special Episode series. This is part 3, and I've got to say the response to this series has been incredible. Thank you all for your continued support and suggestions. This list wouldn't exist without you. These are the movies that went beyond entertainment, movies that forced us to stop, think, reflect, and sometimes cry. This time around, we're exploring stories about systemic injustice, grief, survival, education, and even the end of the world. From Falling Down to Higher Learning, these are the kinds of films that hit hard, stay with you, and say something that matters. Let's run it back.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm really sorry.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm really sorry too.
Get a gun!
Falling Down, 1993. It begins with a traffic jam and a man fed up with everything. William Foster, played by Michael Douglas, walks away from his car and into one of the most intense emotional breakdowns ever captured on screen. What follows is a chilling walk through Los Angeles, filled with explosive confrontations that escalate from petty to violent. This is not a hero's journey. It's the unraveling of someone who believes the world owes him something and is no longer willing to play by society's rules. What makes this film so memorable isn't just the tension, but the way it holds a mirror up to frustration, entitlement, and societal decay. Foster isn't an action movie antihero. He's a warning. The film paints a portrait of disillusionment and anger that feels disturbingly familiar, even decades later. Whether you see him as a victim or a villain, the message is clear. Unchecked rage and personal despair can become a dangerous combination. The emotional unraveling here isn't flashy. It's raw, internalized, and all too real.
Him, Khalil.
Hey, all right, chill.
The Hate U Give, 2018. Star Carter straddles two very different worlds, her poor black neighborhood and the predominantly white prep school she attends. When her childhood friend Khalil is killed by a police officer during a traffic stop, she's thrust into the national spotlight, forced to find her voice amid grief, fear, and community pressure. Her journey becomes a powerful statement about truth, identity, and speaking out against injustice. This film does a brilliant job of showing the emotional complexity of activism. Star is a teen who never asked to be a symbol, yet finds herself becoming one. Her personal story becomes a lens through which we view the real-life consequences of racial profiling, police brutality, and media manipulation. It's an urgent and beautifully acted film that challenges viewers to empathize, reflect, and most importantly, listen. It reminds us that silence can be complicity, and that courage often comes from the most personal places.
Think about it. This is the end for you. No. It's just the beginning.
Light It Up, 1999. A substitute teacher is suspended for defending a student, sparking a chain of events that leads a group of teens to lock down their high school with a police officer held hostage inside. What might sound like a generic action setup is actually a deeply emotional story about frustration, hopelessness, and the need to be heard. The film features a standout cast including Usher Raymond, Rosario Dawson, Forrest Whitaker, Sarah Gilbert, Vanessa L. Williams, and Fredro Starr, bringing gravitas and intensity to every scene. Every student involved has a story: a sick parent, financial hardship, a broken system that labels them rather than helps them. These aren't bad kids. They're kids without support. Their standoff is less about crime and more about desperation. As the clock ticks, the movie forces the audience to ask, what drove them here? And why do so many young people feel like no one cares until it's too late? With strong performances and a message that still resonates, this one is far more than just a hostage drama. It's a cry for help that demands attention and compassion.
Yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell.
A Time to Kill, 1996. In a racially divided Mississippi town, a black father, played by Samuel L. Jackson, takes justice into his own hands after his 10-year-old daughter is assaulted. His trial becomes a media circus and a cultural flashpoint, forcing a young white lawyer to confront both his own biases and the deeply entrenched racism of the legal system around him. Tensions rise, tempers flare, and the question of justice becomes more complicated than anyone expected. There are no easy answers here. The film doesn't try to simplify the moral ambiguity of the situation. It invites you to sit in it. Carl Lee Haley's now iconic question to the jury, delivered through Matthew McConaughey's emotional closing argument, flips the script and dares viewers to confront their own empathy. This isn't just a courtroom drama. It's a gut punch wrapped in legal strategy and moral dilemma. It shows how the law can be both a weapon and a shield, depending on who's holding it. Brian's Song, 1971. Two football players from different racial backgrounds become roommates, friends, and eventually brothers in everything but name. When one is diagnosed with terminal cancer, the bond between them grows even deeper. Together they face fear, uncertainty, and the painful reality of saying goodbye. It's a story of courage, vulnerability, and emotional honesty at a time when those traits were rarely seen in male characters on television. Their friendship is a quiet rebellion against the norms of their era. What could have been a simple sports biopic becomes a timeless portrayal of loyalty and love. Decades later, it still holds the power to reduce viewers to tears. In showing that strength lies in support, not stoicism, the film helped redefine masculinity on screen. It also broke ground by exploring interracial friendship in a way that felt both sincere and human, not preachy. With standout performances from Billy D. Williams and James Caan, the film set a gold standard for emotional storytelling in sports dramas.
Now, I heard that a Marine can kill a man with his bare hands. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Dangerous Minds, 1995. Luann Johnson didn't come to teach. She came to survive. A former Marine stepping into an underfunded, neglected inner-city classroom, she finds herself face-to-face with students who've been told they're hopeless. With unconventional methods, persistence, and a lot of heart, she begins to break through their walls and show them they matter. Yes, the film follows familiar tropes, but the emotional stakes are real. Luann doesn't just teach English. She teaches respect, self-worth, and the power of education. Even when it feels like she's the only one fighting for her students, she never gives up. The movie brings to light the educational inequities that still plague many schools today and reminds us that one person believing in you can be the turning point. And sometimes the greatest lessons come from those who refuse to give up when everyone else already has.
I'm sorry, John. Without a new heart, he's not going to make it.
Okay. You take mine.
John Q, 2002. A working-class father watches his young son collapse during a baseball game. At the hospital, he learns his child needs a heart transplant, and that insurance won't cover it. With no other options and time running out, he takes the emergency room hostage in a desperate plea for his son's life. The setup is heartbreaking because it's real. So many families have found themselves crushed by a healthcare system designed to prioritize profit over people. Denzel Washington delivers a powerhouse performance, capturing both a father's unconditional love and the fury that comes with helplessness. The moral questions the film raises aren't abstract, they're immediate. What would you do to save your child's life? and what kind of society makes you choose between life and money. It's a film that exposes the cracks in a system we often assume will catch us when we fall.
Now, I say if you want to kill yourself, don't fuck around with it. Go in and do it expeditiously. Now, go in and jump. Jump!
No, I don't want to kill myself, sir.
Lean on Me, 1989. The halls are filled with violence, drugs, and failing grades. Into this chaos walks Joe Clark, a baseball bat in one hand, a bullhorn in the other. Tasked with turning around a failing school, he throws out the rule book and demands respect from students and teachers alike. What follows is a tough, gripping battle for the future of the school and the futures of the kids inside it. Joe isn't perfect, but his belief in the students is unshakable. He doesn't just fight for test scores, he fights for dignity. And in doing so, he becomes a symbol of how leadership, discipline, and compassion can change lives. Morgan Freeman's portrayal remains one of the most iconic in his career. It's a testament to what can happen when someone refuses to give up on people that everyone else has written off.
And today I'm the age you were when you left. This might be a real good time for you to come.
Interstellar, 2014. The Earth is dying, and humanity's last hope lies beyond the stars. A team of astronauts, including Cooper, Matthew McConaughey, a former NASA pilot and devoted father, is tasked with finding a new habitable planet through a wormhole near Saturn. Time dilation becomes a cruel enemy. Every hour spent on some planets equates to years passing on Earth. Cooper's separation from his daughter Murphy becomes the film's emotional anchor, as she ages into adulthood while he barely changes. Director Christopher Nolan weaves a sci-fi epic that explores quantum physics, relativity, climate disaster, and the burden of sacrifice. But beneath the grandeur lies something profoundly human: the pain of losing time with loved ones and the hope that love can transcend dimensions. The moment Cooper watches decades of video messages from his children is one of the most heartbreaking scenes in modern cinema. Interstellar blends spectacle with sentiment, reminding us that the most powerful force in the universe might not be gravity, but love.
I figure it ain't what a person say, it's what they think. So in my mind, you've been walking around here calling me a nigga in your head.
Higher Learning, 1995. Freshmen arrive at Columbus University expecting to learn about literature, science, and art. What they get instead is a crash course in identity, privilege, and pain. As students from different racial, socioeconomic, and sexual backgrounds collide, tension boils over. Microaggressions become confrontations. Frustration turns into extremism. And by the end, tragedy strikes in a way no one is prepared for. John Singleton doesn't flinch. He captures the pressure of discovering who you are in a world eager to define it for you. Through its intersecting storylines, the film highlights how systemic inequality, hate, and fear seep into even the most enlightened spaces. The result is an emotional, at times brutal film that still feels alarmingly current. Education doesn't just happen in classrooms. It happens through experience, pain, and growth. And sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones no one wants to teach. That's a wrap on Very Special Movies Part 3. Whether it's a man pushed to the edge and falling down, a father fighting against the odds in John Q, or college students navigating identity in Higher Learning, these movies prove that great storytelling can challenge and transform us. They push us to ask tough questions and, in doing so, bring us closer to understanding. And that wraps up this special compilation of Very Special Episodes Parts 13 to 24 and Very Special Movies Parts 2 and 3. Looking back on this past year, it's been amazing to see how much the series has grown and how many incredible stories we've been able to revisit together. Each episode and film reminded us that television and movies aren't just about laughs or thrills. They can also challenge us, comfort us, and leave a lasting mark. A huge shout out and heartfelt thank you to our amazing Throwback Tier members, Peace by Chaos, Thicula, iCritic, Jeremy Bowen, Mr. Blanks, and Sonic and Leighton Fan. Your support means the world, and you're helping keep the nostalgia alive in a big way. I also want to thank all the other awesome members who support the channel. Whether you're new or you've been rocking with us from the beginning, I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for being part of this journey and for supporting the series since it began. If you enjoyed this compilation, make sure to hit that hype button to help the channel continue to grow, and let me know which episode or movie moment stood out the most for you. This series has been such a rewarding ride, and I can't wait to keep going with more. Until then, keep the nostalgia alive.